I never liked Thursdays. Something about that dead space between midweek and the weekend always rubbed me wrong. But nothing, not war, not blood, not even burying my own father, ever tore through me like that Thursday night. It was raining, a dull, persistent drizzle that turned the city into a reflection of itself. I was supposed to be out of town. I even told her I was flying to Miami for a contractor bid, because I wanted to test a suspicion that had been gnawing at the back of my skull for weeks. Her name's Ashley. Blonde. Legs for days. The kind of woman who could smile in your face while stabbing you in the chest. I married her because she made me feel alive. Now I realize that's how poison works. It burns before it kills. I pulled up outside our house around 10 p.m., engine off, headlights dim. The place looked peaceful. Lights on in the living room. A bottle of wine on the windowsill. 2 glasses. One half full. One nearly empty. My fist tightened. I didn't charge in like some movie cliche. No, I went around the back, like I used to when we first moved in, when we were still happy and playful. I had my key. I slipped inside quietly. What I saw in the living room slammed into my chest like a sledgehammer. Ashley, in one of my old shirts, half-buttoned, no pants. Straddling Derek, a guy I knew vaguely from our gym. Tall, fake tan, and stupid enough to think I wouldn't recognize his crooked jawline from the hallway mirror. They were mid-wrestle. Not even subtle about it. Her voice was a raspy whisper, saying things I didn't know she even had in her vocabulary. She moved on him like a snake in heat. And then she said it. He's so boring, Derek. You make me feel like a real woman. I didn't even blink. I just turned around, walked upstairs, opened my laptop, and logged into our joint accounts, checking, savings, crypto, business, and that secret stash she didn't know I knew about. I transferred every dollar. Clean. Quiet. Surgical. Then I packed a bag. I took my passport, my Glock 19, and my grandfather's watch. Left everything else. On my way out, I stood in the doorway for just a second. Watched her laugh as Derek whispered something in her ear. She still hadn't noticed I was home. That's how far gone she was. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even close it. Just walked away and left it wide open behind me like she'd done to our marriage. 3 years passed. I lived like a ghost. Different cities. Fake names. Cash paychecks. Did some freelance security jobs, private extractions, a bit of black ops work for those who didn't want receipts. Life was quiet, but the anger never really went away. You don't bury something like that. You just wrap it in concrete and pretend you never heard it scream. Then, one night, I was sitting in a dimly lit bar in El Paso, sipping cheap whiskey and watching college basketball on a dusty screen, when the stool next to me creaked. He was clean-cut. No visible weapon. Just a calm, steady presence. Ex-military. Maybe CIA. He leaned close and said, "Don't make a scene." Then I felt it, a cold, sharp sting pressed to my groin. A stun gun. "We're going to Texas right now," he said, "and you'll stand trial for fraud." I smiled. "Wrong guy," I muttered. But in that instant, everything clicked. It was Ashley. It had to be. She found out I emptied everything. She must have told them I faked my death, forged identities, laundered money, whatever story she'd built to cover the fact she was just a lying snake. What she didn't count on. My combat training kicked in. I slammed my elbow backward into his jaw, felt the bone crack under pressure. The stun gun dropped. I flipped the table, shattered a beer bottle, and was gone through the kitchen door before the other agents could react. Adrenaline roared in my veins like napalm. My past was chasing me. Ashley's betrayal was no longer just emotional. It was about to become criminal. And now I had to fight my way back into the truth. Find her. Face her. And tear every lie she ever told me out of the shadows she thought I'd never crawl out of. This isn't just about revenge anymore. This is about war. They say hindsight is 20/20ths. That's a damn lie. Hindsight is a curse. It haunts you, reminds you that the signs were always there. You just ignored them because you wanted to believe in the person standing next to you. I wanted to believe in Ashley, but she played me like a fool, and now I see the whole picture in full, brutal clarity. The first crack in our perfect image came 6 months before I caught her. It was small, innocent, almost laughable. She came home late, said she was out with her friend Melissa. No big deal, right? But Melissa called me the next day, asking if Ashley was okay, said she hadn't heard from her in weeks. That hit like a gut punch, but I shrugged it off. Work stress, forgetfulness. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. My first mistake. Then came the gym memberships. Not hers or his. Derek's. I saw the notification on our bank account. He signed up at the same gym we went to. The same day I extended my shift for out-of-town work. It felt off. I asked her about it casually. She laughed, said it was a coincidence. Derek? Oh my God, babe. He's harmless. Just flirts with everyone. I'd never go for a guy like that. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We were married. We had a mortgage. Plans for a kid. A dog named Baxter that used to bark his tail off every time I walked through the door. I was building a life. She was building a lie. I started noticing her phone habits. Always face down. Always with her. She never used to be like that. Ashley was the kind of woman who used to send me photos while I was away, just to tell me she missed me. Now she barely texted back. Or when she did, it was a lazy LOL or a heart emoji that felt more like punctuation than love. One night, I saw her standing in the hallway. She didn't know I was watching. She was smiling at her phone, biting her lip. Whispered something to herself, he's such a bad boy. I asked who she was talking to. She jumped. Oh, a TikTok video. This guy, he was doing a prank thing. It was Derek. I knew it even then. I just didn't want to face it. Then came the business trips. She suddenly had a new conference every other month. She never used to travel. Now she had 3 different suitcases and perfume I'd never smelled before. I checked one of her receipts from a hotel. 2 guests. 1 bed. She claimed it was a mistake. The system always charges that way. Don't be paranoid. Paranoid. That's what she called me. Gaslighting 101. Make the loyal husband feel like he's the crazy one while she's off being a damn groupie for Derek and his protein shakes. I still remember the night I found the photos. I was looking for a charger in her nightstand when I saw the burner phone. Cheap. Hidden under a pile of old magazines. It wasn't locked. Either she was careless or confident. There they were. Photos of her and Derek. In our bed. In his car. In a hotel room with that same tacky gold lamp in the background. Her in lingerie I never saw her wear for me. Her on top of him, laughing like she'd won the lottery. It wasn't just the images that crushed me, it was the texts. Ashley, he's so boring. You make me feel alive. Derek, you're a goddess. He doesn't deserve you. Ashley, I wish I could leave, but I need his money just a little longer. That last one flipped a switch. She didn't just cheat. She used me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, holding that burner phone like it was a ticking bomb. Because it was. And I had just discovered how long it had been counting down. I waited 2 days before I said a word. 2 full days of pretending everything was fine, just so I could look her in the eye and measure the weight of her lies. You'd think it would be easy to confront a cheating wife. It's not. It's like preparing to kill the last shred of hope you ever had in someone. That evening, she was lounging on the couch, wearing the same robe she'd worn in one of the photos with Derek. The audacity made my skin crawl. I stood in the doorway of the living room, arms crossed, just watching her as she scrolled through her phone. She didn't even notice me at first. Then she looked up, smiled. Hey, babe, she said like nothing was wrong. You're home early. I kept my voice steady. We need to talk. Her smile faded, just slightly. Okay. What's wrong? I tossed the burner phone onto the table between us. Her face drained faster than a storm gutter. She stared at it, then at me, then back again. Her fingers twitched like she was deciding whether to grab it or deny it existed. What the hell is that? She said finally. You tell me, I replied. Because it's got photos of you and Derek. Messages. Lies. Half of them in our damn bed. Her jaw clenched. You went through my stuff? Your stuff? In my house? Paid for with my business? She stood up, her voice rising. I can't believe you'd spy on me like some psycho. This is a total invasion of privacy. I laughed. It was the kind of laugh that didn't come from humor. It came from a place so deep and broken it had no other way to express itself. You're mad about privacy? After screwing another man in my bed while pretending to love me. Ashley didn't flinch. Didn't cry. She didn't even look sorry. You've been distant for months, she snapped. Always working. Always on some mission to build a future. What about me, huh? What about how I feel? You could have talked to me, I said, trying to keep control. Instead, you lied. Over and over. She shrugged. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed Derek. That line, that one sentence burned hotter than anything she'd done. She was blaming me. For her betrayal. So that's it. I asked. You cheat, and it's my fault? I didn't plan it, she said. I suddenly moist. It just happened. And it felt good. He made me feel like someone wanted me again. I shook my head, heart pounding. No. You chose it. Every text, every lie, every time you said, I love you, while wiping his smell off your skin, you chose that. Silence stretched between us. Then she crossed her arms. So, what now? You gonna leave? Kick me out? Try to sue me? No, I said quietly. I'm going to make sure you remember what it feels like to be used. Just like you used me. She tilted her head. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I just walked away, upstairs, and locked the office door. That night, while she slept, wrapped in fake guilt and expensive sheets, I made my moves. I contacted the bank, changed every password, locked her out of everything. I even rerouted our investment funds into a private offshore account. She wouldn't see it coming, just like I hadn't. When she woke up, it would be the beginning of my revenge. But I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't hit or threaten or beg. That's what she expected. That's what people like her feed on, drama. Instead, I stayed silent, focused, precise. She took everything I gave her for granted. Now I was going to take it all back. You know what no one tells you? That silence can be louder than shouting. That a quiet house, once filled with laughter, dumb jokes, clinking glasses, footsteps, kisses, can suddenly feel like a damn mausoleum. That night, after I confronted Ashley, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark office, alone, staring at the flicker of the computer screen as I finalized my final withdrawal from the shared business account. I had built that company from scratch. 15-hour days, skipped birthdays, bloodshot eyes, and caffeine-fueled weekends. And she? She helped pick the logo. That was her big contribution. But guess whose name she insisted be on all the paperwork, just in case? Yeah, hers. We're a team, she said. What's mine is yours. Turns out she meant, what's yours will soon be mine. I looked down at my hands, strong, calloused, steady, and I didn't recognize them. These hands built homes. These hands held her when she cried. These hands made breakfast every Sunday. Now they were tools of quiet vengeance. I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I felt like a ghost in his own damn life. At around 3 a.m., I heard the stairs creak. She walked past the office without knocking. No apology. No attempt to talk. Just the sound of her slippers dragging down the hallway. Like I didn't exist. Like the life she blew up wasn't worth even a second glance. I closed my eyes, let the silence crawl over me. The next morning, she was in the kitchen making coffee like it was just another day. Humming. Barefoot. Wearing one of my t-shirts. It made my stomach twist. I couldn't even look at her. Want some? She asked, holding the pot toward me. I didn't respond. She leaned against the counter, eyes glazed over. So, what? You're just gonna mope around now? It's not like I murdered someone. That was her way of minimizing it, making me look dramatic. She had a whole playbook of deflection. I knew every page now. You didn't just cheat, Ashley, I said calmly. You betrayed every part of this marriage. You used me. She rolled her eyes. You act like I was planning it for years. Weren't you? She paused. That pause said more than any lie she could have told. I left the kitchen. Back in the office, I opened the safe, pulled out the cash I'd been stashing for years. Emergency money. Meant for medical bills, or if we ever had to leave town. Now it was my escape fund. I looked at Baxter, our dog, sitting beside the desk. His eyes met mine, tail wagging slightly. He didn't understand any of this. Just knew something felt off. He hadn't slept near her in days. Smart dog. Smarter than I'd been. I leaned down, pet his head. She's not going to hurt you too, buddy. I promise. Later that day, I called a friend from my military days, Ryan. Told him everything. The betrayal. The burner phone. The business accounts. He didn't say much. Just asked where to meet. That evening, I packed a single duffel bag. Cash. Passports. Spare phone. I was done with the crying. I was done with the waiting. I was done being the guy who stayed loyal to someone who deserved nothing but consequences. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood at the front door one last time. Ashley was on the couch, scrolling through her phone again. Probably texting Derek. Or someone else. I didn't care anymore. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. Didn't even slam the door. I just walked out and let the silence swallow her whole. There's a kind of freedom that only comes after your whole world burns down. And as I drove out of the neighborhood that morning, the sun just starting to rise over the rooftops, I felt it pure, bitter freedom. Like I was peeling off the last dead layer of skin she left on me. I didn't have a plan. Not a detailed one anyway. Just a destination and a reason. Get away. Make her feel the absence she once begged me to fill. I met Ryan at a diner off I-35. We hadn't seen each other in years, but he still had that calm energy, that ex-soldier stillness. He slid into the booth, black coffee in hand, no small talk. "You good?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "But I will be." He nodded like he understood everything I didn't say out loud. We spent 2 hours going through details, changing my phone number, wiping old accounts, setting up alias credentials. Ryan had contacts, and he owed me favors from back when we were overseas, and I pulled him out of a bullet storm in Fallujah. "You sure you don't want to make a legal move?" he asked. "No," I said. "She can have a damn house. The furniture. Even the name. I just want her to wake up broke, alone, and confused. Because that's what she left me with, confusion. A gnawing ache in my chest that I couldn't punch away or bury with work. She didn't just betray me in flesh, she buried the man I used to be. I wasn't trying to get revenge anymore. I was trying to reclaim my soul. By noon, my digital footprint was scrubbed. I was now Nathan Cole, a traveling consultant from Colorado with no credit card debt and no legal baggage. Ryan even handed me a clean phone loaded with a secure app and a one-way plane ticket to Santa Fe. I stood in the parking lot, staring at that ticket like it held the key to a new dimension. In a way, it did. "Thanks," I said. Ryan patted my shoulder. "Go live your life, man. Let her rot in the mess she made." Back at the house, Ashley had no idea. While she was posting filtered selfies and texting Derek about grabbing sushi, I had drained every bank account. Not in rage, not in spite, but in justice. That money was built with my sweat, my risk, my sacrifice. I left her enough to survive barely. Enough to make her panic. To make her question every financial decision, every man she trusted. She had the house, but no security. She had freedom, but no control. Baxter was with me. I wasn't leaving him behind. He'd seen the worst of her. He'd waited by the door every night she stayed out. That dog deserved peace too. We hit the road with the windows down, country music on the radio, and 2 burner phones buzzing in the glove compartment. One for Ryan. One for me. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. Like I'd escaped a cage, but part of me was still shackled to the memory of who I used to be with her. It's strange, the woman I once thought I couldn't live without had become the reason I didn't recognize myself anymore. And now, I was starting over. No texts. No calls. No social media. I erased myself from her world, just like she erased her loyalty from mine. But I wasn't running. I was resetting. 3 years passed like shadows, fast, quiet, and always creeping up behind me. I lived simply, kept to small towns, never used the same name twice. Baxter and I moved through states like ghosts, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico. I worked cash gigs, construction, security, even bounced at a biker bar for a few months. I had peace. Not happiness, not closure, just peace. It was enough. Until that night in Austin. I was sitting alone in a dark corner of a bar, sipping whiskey that tasted like burnt wood and regret. The TV above the bar was playing some college football game, but I wasn't watching. My mind was elsewhere, like always. Ashley had become more memory than emotion, faded but sharp around the edges. That's when he sat down. Didn't say a word at first. Just took the stool next to me like it belonged to him. Tall guy, clean-shaven, military cut, tan blazer, no tie, not a local. "You Nathan?" he asked casually, like he was asking for the time. I didn't answer. Then he reached under the counter and did something no one in their right mind would do in a bar in Texas. He pressed a stun gun against my groin. Click. I didn't flinch. Just looked at him. "You're going to Texas right now," he said, "and you'll stand trial for fraud." I stared him down. "You don't look like local PD." "I'm not. I'm contracted." He slid a leather badge holder across the table. Something about it felt real. But the moment he said fraud, I knew who had sent him. Ashley. I kept my hands on the table. Fraud for what? Money laundering, identity theft, corporate embezzlement. Take your pick. I smiled slowly. She finally came for the money. He didn't react. But I did. Years of combat training kicked in without thought. I slammed my elbow backward into his throat. Not enough to kill. Just to stun. The taser dropped to the floor with a clatter. His knee jerked, knocking over a glass. The bartender looked up, just in time to see me slam the guy's face into the bar. Then I was over the counter and into the back kitchen before anyone could shout, "Call the cops." Through the back door, I bolted into the alley, vaulted a dumpster, and vanished into the street. By the time sirens echoed down 5th Street, I was already 2 blocks away, jogging like just another night runner in Austin. I ducked into a parking garage, yanked off my hoodie, swapped it for a cap from my backpack, and headed for the rooftop. From there, I watched as the detective stumbled outside with a bloody nose and handcuffs dangling from his belt. My heart was calm. Too calm. I should have known she'd come for me. Ashley wasn't the type to let go, especially not when money and pride were involved. She must have spun a whole damn story to the authorities: abandoned wife, stolen assets, emotional trauma. I could hear her fake cry from here. She didn't want justice. She wanted revenge. And now, she'd found me. But what she didn't know was, I wasn't the same man who walked out of that house 3 years ago. She had the law on her side. I had nothing left to lose. And when a man has nothing to lose, he becomes something far more dangerous than she ever imagined. This wasn't over. This was war. I spent the next 72 hours underground, figuratively and literally. Tunnels beneath a parking garage downtown, abandoned freight yard outside of Austin, even a sketchy motel that charged by the hour and didn't ask for ID. My name changed again. My phone changed. But one thing stayed the same. Ashley was now in my crosshairs. She'd sent someone after me. That meant she knew where I'd been. Or worse, she never stopped looking. The way a snake waits for you to turn your back before it sinks its fangs in. Only this time, I was the one with venom. The thing is, Ashley never wanted me. She wanted the version of me that gave without asking questions, that worked until his hands bled, and handed her everything with a bow on top. When that version disappeared, so did the illusion of love. And now that I had something she couldn't control, money, freedom, truth, she sent hired suits with stun guns and court orders to reel me back in. But she forgot what I used to be before the tailored suits, before the mortgage and Sunday brunch. I used to be a soldier. I used to hunt people like her. So I hunted her. Not to hurt. Not yet. But to know. I reached out to an old friend, Leah, who worked IT security for a corporate law firm in Dallas. She owed me a favor, big one. I asked her to pull any public filings, bank statements, and digital paper trails under Ashley's name. She called me 6 hours later. "You're gonna love this," she said. "She's filed fraud charges in 3 states under your real name. Even claimed you were involved in offshore gambling operations and forged real estate deeds. The kicker? She also listed you as missing, possibly dead, in a petition to gain full control of your business assets." I laughed. Out loud. The audacity of this woman was inspiring, if not terrifying. "She's going all in," I said. "Yeah," Leah replied. "But guess what else? She's been draining money from the old accounts too. Big chunks. Untraceable platforms. And the recipient?" Pause. Then Leah said, "A man named Derek West. Recognize him?" Oh, I did. He was still around. Still in her bed. Maybe even in my house, driving my car, eating my food. That was the final push I needed. I booked a private ride into Fort Worth, rented a car under the alias Logan Pierce, and drove straight to the last known address Leah pulled from her scan. A condo. Downtown. Gated, but not impenetrable. I waited in the lot across the street, tinted windows, sunglasses on, heart rate steady. At 7:42 p.m., I saw her. Ashley, wearing designer heels, phone to her ear, laughing like she hadn't just tried to destroy my life a few days ago. Then he came out behind her. Derek. That same smug, lifeless face. Arm around her waist. Matching key fob in his hand. They kissed. Right there in public. That used to be my life. My car. My wife. I didn't feel pain. I felt precision. I snapped a few photos. Sent them to Leah. "Keep these. Might need them when I blow this whole thing open." She replied instantly. "Whatever you're planning, be smart." I was done being smart. I was going to be strategic. Ashley wanted a war? She just stepped into the battlefield. Fort Worth was humid that night. The kind of air that sticks to your skin and makes you feel like you're crawling through it. Fitting, really, like the world itself knew I was about to wade through something rotten. I waited until 2 a.m. I watched the lights go off in the condo. Waited another hour. Then I moved. No ski mask. No weapons. No theatrics. Just me, my silence, and the kind of fury that comes not from anger, but from betrayal. I knew the code to the building. She never changed it. Typical Ashley. Always smart enough to scheme, too lazy to secure. I moved up the stairs, slow, deliberate, until I reached their floor. The door was cracked open. Unlocked. You'd think someone so deep in lies would lock their door at night. But no. She never believed anything could touch her. Until now. I stepped in quietly. Familiar layout. Open kitchen, hallway to the right, bedroom door at the end. I could hear breathing. 2 of them. Slow. Heavy. I followed it like a bloodhound. I didn't burst in. I knocked. Just once. There was a moment of pure stillness. Then footsteps. Fast. Panicked. The door flung open, and there she was, Ashley, in a satin robe, eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. "Hello, sweetheart," I said. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Behind her, Derek stumbled up, shirtless, holding a lamp like it was going to protect him. She finally breathed. "How the hell, eh? Find me." I finished for her. "You did it first. Just returning the favor." She stepped back. "You can't be here. Relax. I'm not here to hurt you. Not physically." She narrowed her eyes. "Then what do you want?" I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Thick. Heavy. I tossed it on the bed. "What's this?" Derek asked. "Proof," I said calmly. "Signed documents. Screenshots. Statements. All tying Ashley to wire fraud, money laundering, and false identity claims." She turned pale. "I made a few friends while I was gone," I continued. "Tech-savvy friends. Government friends. You know, the kind of people you really shouldn't piss off." Ashley took a shaky step forward. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Her lips trembled. "They won't believe you. They won't have to. The numbers will." I took a deep breath. "You tried to erase me, Ash. Sent someone with a stun gun to drag me back into your mess. Spun a story about abuse, about fear, about survival. But here's the problem." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You're predictable." She started to speak, but I raised my hand. "I've already turned the files over to a federal investigator. Name's not mine, by the way. I burned that ID the moment I left you. So if anyone's on trial, it'll be you." "You're bluffing," Derek muttered. I looked at him. "I would have respected you more if you kept your mouth shut." Then I turned back to Ashley. "I came here to give you something." She blinked. "What?" "Closure." I turned toward the door. "I'm done running. I've got nothing left for you to take. You emptied me out the night you climbed into bed with this fool. But you know what? I'm still here. And I'm free." She lunged forward, desperate. "Please, don't do this." "You already did," I said, without even looking back. I left her standing in that room, broken and finally aware she couldn't play her game anymore. That was the last time I saw Ashley. 3 weeks later, I got a message from Leah. "Feds raided the condo. She's being indicted." He ran. Typical. I was on a beach in Baja by then. Baxter curled up at my feet, sunset in the distance. No war. No noise. Just peace. You asked what I learned from all this? Trust isn't given. It's earned. And once it's broken, it's not your job to fix it. It's your job to walk away and never look back. When I kicked down that mahogany door, the frame split in half, not unlike my chest in that moment. The villa smelled like cigar smoke, expensive perfume, and betrayal. It took me half a second to process the scene. 5 people in the living room, my wife, my brother, and 3 other men I didn't recognize. All of them had the kind of smug, wine-glazed grins that made my blood taste like metal. And there she was, Ashley. She was draped across Jake's lap, in a silk robe that didn't cover much. Her lipstick was smudged, not from a wine glass, but from someone else's mouth. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't even bother covering herself. Instead, she laughed. "You're late, soldier boy," she said. Should have stayed deployed. My boots were still dusted with Afghan sand, my duffel bag tossed on their marble floor. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from everything I had pushed down for the last 11 months. I came home expecting a warm dinner and my son's arms around my neck. Instead, I got this, a damn circus. Jake, my own brother, leaned back and smiled like he'd just closed a real estate deal. "You should have seen the look on your face," he said, sipping from his whiskey glass. I turned my head toward the others. One of them had a gold chain and no shirt. Another had a hand on Ashley's thigh like he'd done it 1,000 times. The last one, some rat-faced guy with a Rolex and crooked teeth, was filming it. "Delete that," I said through clenched teeth. Ashley smirked. "Why? Gonna cry to your sergeant." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some confused face. This was intentional, deliberate, calculated. While I was dodging IEDs and burying friends, she was playing queen in some makeshift harem, funded by the combat pay I wired every month. And the worst part? My son. Where was he? Where was Ethan? I couldn't hold back anymore. I charged forward. Jake stood, thinking he could stop me, but I shoved him into the glass coffee table like he was a training dummy. His drink spilled over the Persian rug, and one of the goons lunged toward me. I spun him sideways into the wall. His head hit drywall. Hard. Ashley stood up now, arms crossed, robe sliding down her shoulder like she was auditioning for some trashy reality show. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You think throwing punches is gonna win me back?" I stopped, looked at her, really looked at her. This woman, this snake, this manipulative little actress, she wasn't the Ashley I'd married. That woman used to cry when I left for deployment. This one was sneering like she was bored by my presence. I wiped the sweat from my brow. "Where's my son?" I asked. My voice was low, calm, the kind of calm you learn when you've seen death up close. Ashley shrugged. "He calls Jake Dad now," she said. That's when the world stopped. It was like a sniper bullet to the chest. Clean, cold, precise. My knees almost gave out. I dreamed of my son every night, held on to his drawings like lifelines. And she just replaced me. I walked to the door. "Look back once. Just once. You've got no idea what you've just started," I said. Ashley rolled her eyes. "Spare me the soldier speak." I smiled. A real, slow smile. The kind I used to wear in enemy territory right before a breach. "You think this is me broken?" I whispered. "This is me loading the chamber." And I left. But trust me, that was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my truck outside the villa for hours, fists clenched on the steering wheel, knuckles white. The lights inside stayed on. I watched silhouettes dance past the windows, her, Jake, and their little party crew. I imagined Ethan somewhere behind those walls, maybe asleep, maybe hearing them laugh at his father. That thought nearly tore me in half. I didn't go back in. I'd learned in the army that emotion gets men killed. And right now, I needed clarity, not rage. So I drove. My first stop? Mrs. Miller, the neighbor who lived 2 doors down from our old house. She was the one who dropped the bomb earlier, told me Ashley had married Jake. I owed her more questions. She opened the door in her nightgown, eyes widening when she saw me. "Jason, I didn't expect. Come in, come in." "No, ma'am. Just a few more questions." She stepped onto the porch, pulling her robe tighter. "I'm so sorry, Jason. I really am. You were always good to that woman. I don't know what came over her." "How long?" I asked. Mrs. Miller hesitated. 6 months after you deployed. First, Jake started visiting. Said he was helping around the house. Then it changed. I saw them holding hands in the yard, kissing behind your car. Ethan was confused at first, kept asking when you'd come home. Then he stopped asking. I nearly doubled over at that. "And the marriage?" I forced myself to ask. "Courthouse. Quiet." She wore a white dress like it meant something. She shook her head. "Your parents didn't even go. Said it was disgraceful." I bit my lip until I tasted blood. I thanked her and left, not trusting my voice. The next stop was my parents' house. They opened the door like they were expecting a ghost. My mother gasped and clutched her chest. My dad, former Marine himself, just nodded and opened his arms. That broke me. Inside, they told me more than I was ready to hear. "She came by once," my father said. "Told us she'd fallen out of love with you. That Jake understood her better. Said the military changed you too much. And you didn't tell me?" I snapped. "We tried," my mother said. "Emails. Letters. She must have intercepted them." I leaned back in the chair, stunned. "She told Ethan you were never coming back," my mom added softly. That right there? That gutted me. She had rewritten history. Rewritten me. Turned my son's idea of me into a ghost. That's when I made the decision. No guns. No fists. No drama. I'd win back everything. Not by sinking to her level, but by making sure she drowned in the truth. I started with the paper trail. That same night, I went to the storage unit where I kept all our important documents before deployment. Inside were copies of joint accounts, military allotments, signed guardianship agreements, Ethan's birth certificate, even a notarized letter Ashley had signed granting me full parental rights in the event of emotional distress or misconduct. She must have forgotten about that little line. I made copies. Dozens. And then I reached out to the only person I knew who could help navigate this without hesitation. Caleb, my old army buddy, now a licensed private investigator. "Jay," he said as he picked up, "tell me who needs to be buried." "Not buried," I said. "Just exposed." He chuckled. "Same thing." I gave him the names. Ashley, Jake, the men at the villa. One of them looked familiar. Turned out he was a local developer with a nasty reputation and a wife of his own. By morning, Caleb had started digging. By noon, I had enough ammunition to burn her entire fantasy to the ground. But I wasn't going to burn it. Not yet. First, I was going to reclaim my son. Because that little boy deserved to know the truth. And so did she. By the third morning, the fury had settled into something colder. Calculated. Focused. Rage had no place in this anymore. Now it was about Ethan. About truth. About taking back what was mine, without screaming, without fists, without matching their filth. I'd do it like a soldier. Like a tactician. Caleb moved fast. He always did. By the time I met him at a diner off Route 17, he already had a file thick enough to break a table leg. He slid it over the formica like it was a menu. "You're not gonna like most of what's in there," he said, sipping black coffee. "But it's better than being in the dark." Inside the file were photos. Ashley at a hotel, again and again, with different men. Some were businessmen. One was a married city councilman. Text screenshots. Transaction records. Even audio. One of the guys had bragged to someone about her being a war widow who didn't wait for the war to end. She sold my name for attention. Sold my absence for thrills. Then came the part that truly twisted my stomach. Documents showing Jake had legally claimed paternity over Ethan. My own brother had falsified paperwork while I was serving overseas. How the hell is that even possible? I asked, voice low. Forgery, fake signatures, a cooperative notary, money talks, Caleb replied. The whole thing's shady. But that's where your military guardianship clause saves your ass. I felt a tremor run through me. Not fear. Resolve. I had enough now to tear down the fantasy she built. But first, I needed to look into my son's eyes and remind him who I was. Not just with words, but with action. So I did something bold. I showed up at the villa again, not to fight, but with a family lawyer beside me, briefcase in hand. I knew Jake would answer the door. He did. Smug. Relaxed. A robe. No shirt. What now? He said, eyes raking over the lawyer like she was a pizza delivery girl. I'm here for my son, I said plainly. You have no legal right to keep him from me. And this woman will be serving you with notice. Jake laughed like it was a prank show. Get off the property, Jason. Ashley appeared behind him, barefoot and careless, sipping mimosa like it was a spa day. I told you, she said, Ethan's ours now. He doesn't even remember you. That almost broke me. But the lawyer stepped forward, cool as a judge. Actually, Ms. Collins, that's still Mrs. Collins, legally, under the Military Parent Protection Act and Jason's notarized guardianship documents. Your custody claim is not only invalid, it's a felony if you interfere further. Ashley blinked. For the first time, her smirk faltered. You forged papers, Ashley, I said, stepping forward. You lied about me being gone. You put our son in the middle of your twisted little game. You're just bitter I moved on, she hissed. No, I said. I'm disgusted you didn't wait a month before dragging my son into a soap opera with 4 half-naked men and a brother who couldn't grow a spine. Jake clenched his jaw. Ashley flared like a storm. Then a small voice echoed from behind them. Dad, it was Ethan, 7 years old. Hair longer, taller, but still mine. I dropped to one knee as he stepped forward. Ashley tried to stop him, but even she knew the cameras, now on, thanks to Caleb, were watching. Hey, buddy, I said, voice cracking. I missed you. He looked confused. Then his eyes widened. You're really here. I nodded. I never stopped waiting, he whispered. And that's when Ashley lost. Not legally, not financially, not socially, but personally, emotionally, because her son didn't see Jake as his father. He saw me. That moment. That was the shift. Now it was war. But this time, I had the upper hand, and her whole house of lies was about to come crashing down. That night, I didn't go back to my parents' place. Instead, I booked a room at a modest inn on the edge of town. Quiet, no noise, no memories, just space to think. Ethan's face haunted me, that fragile mix of confusion and hope. I'd only seen him for less than a minute, but it rewired my entire purpose. He remembered me, and more than that, he wanted me. I lay on that stiff bed staring at the ceiling, trying to replay every second. His voice, his little hands, the way he whispered, "You're really here." Ashley didn't expect that. She thought she'd buried me, rewritten the story like I was some ghost that faded away into a uniform. But ghosts don't hold legal documents, and they sure as hell don't fight for their kids in broad daylight. At 7 a.m., Caleb called. "I have something for you," he said. "It's big." I met him again at the diner. This time, his face was tighter, more serious. "You know the guy in the gold chain? One of Ashley's men?" he asked. "Yeah. He's not just some idiot playboy. His name's Frank Delgado. He's under investigation. Human trafficking, gambling ring, offshore accounts. Guess who's appeared multiple times on wiretaps? Your lovely wife." My stomach turned. Caleb slid a flash drive across the table. "There's no direct evidence of Ashley trafficking anything but her dignity, but she was present, knew the men, stayed overnight at least 3 locations under surveillance. And, brace for this, Ethan was with her one of those nights." I felt the rage crawl up my spine like a wildfire. "She brought my son into that," I said, barely able to get the words out. "Kid wasn't in any danger that they could see, but that won't matter in court. This changes everything." He was right. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was endangerment. And now I had the ammo. That day, I met with a family law attorney. We filed for emergency custody, attaching everything, from forged documents to surveillance footage and financial misconduct. Ethan's safety was the weapon I needed, and the truth was the blade. The court set a hearing for the following Monday. But I didn't wait. Instead, I did something Ashley never expected. I showed up calmly at the villa 2 days later, with cupcakes. She opened the door wearing a red silk robe again, trying to summon that same smirk from last time. But it was weaker now. "What the hell do you want, Jason?" she asked. "I brought these for Ethan," I said. "And I'd like to talk to him. 1 hour. Supervised. You can sit right there." She narrowed her eyes. "Trying to play Mr. Perfect Dad now?" I shrugged. "You scared I might actually remind him what love feels like?" Her lips curled, but she let me in. Jake wasn't there. Neither were her friends. Just her, a robe, and a rapidly crumbling grip on the empire she'd built on lies. Ethan came downstairs in a rush, eyes wide. "You really came back. I promised, didn't I?" We sat in the living room, talking over cupcakes and old photos I brought. I didn't say a word about his mother. I didn't need to. Kids feel the truth. They don't need it yelled. Ashley watched us, at first from across the room, then closer, then standing behind Ethan, arms crossed. "You're trying to poison him against me," she snapped. "No," I said. "I'm letting him remember." She lunged toward me, snatched the photo album from the table, and threw it across the room. Pages fluttered like dead leaves. "You think you're gonna walk in here and just take him?" she shrieked. "You think he's yours?" Ethan flinched. I looked her dead in the eye. "He was never yours to keep. He's my son, and I'm done playing by your rules." And for the first time, she looked scared. Not because of me, but because the lies were collapsing, and the truth was loud. The courtroom was cold, not because of the air conditioning, but because Ashley walked in like she owned the building. Like the judge was her cousin, and the truth could be bent into submission. She wore a tailored navy blue dress, hair slicked into some high-maintenance bun that screamed control freak. Jake followed her like a pathetic shadow, adjusting his tie like he was auditioning for the role of loyal husband number 2 in some low-budget soap opera. I sat at the other end with my lawyer, Melissa Harper. Former military, razor sharp. The kind of woman who didn't smile much, but made people cry on the stand with surgical precision. "Ready?" she asked me. I nodded. But inside, I was a war zone of emotions. Anger, anticipation, pain, all held together by the single memory of Ethan's voice whispering, "You really came back." That was my anchor. The judge entered. Everyone rose. "Be seated," he said. "We're here to review the emergency petition for full custody filed by Jason Collins against Ashley Collins, still legally his wife, and Jacob Collins, the respondent's domestic partner." Ashley immediately leaned into her act. "Your Honor," she began, with fake tears already showing up in the corners of her perfectly mascaraed eyes. "This man abandoned us. He left without warning, and when my brother-in-law stepped in to help, things happened. I did what I had to for our son. Lies, served like appetizers." Melissa stood, cool and collected. "Your Honor, we'd like to begin by submitting this folder of communications, bank statements, video footage, and a notarized guardianship document signed by Mrs. Collins prior to Mr. Collins' deployment." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." And so it began. Melissa rolled out the evidence like a military operation. Timelines. Messages. The notarized agreement Ashley clearly forgot she signed, giving Jason full parental guardianship during deployment. Wire transfers of Jason's army salary, all of it going to Ashley's account. Surveillance footage of Ashley at known criminal gatherings. Screenshots of Jake's forged signature claiming paternity. Each point was a nail in their coffin. Ashley tried to object, feigned emotional distress, claimed she didn't understand what she was signing back then. Jake chimed in with some nonsense about just trying to keep the family together. The judge looked over the rim of his glasses like he was deciding whether to hold back laughter or rage. Then Melissa said the one sentence that changed the tone of the room. We also have reason to believe the child, Ethan Collins, was present during an evening where Mrs. Collins consorted with an individual under federal investigation for trafficking and organized crime. That hit like a grenade. Ashley's face turned the color of curdled milk. Jake blinked like someone just unplugged his brain. He was just, Ashley stuttered. He was sleeping upstairs. The law doesn't recognize that as a safe environment. The judge cut in sharply. It was over. The judge turned to Ashley, face like stone. This court finds sufficient grounds for emergency transfer of full legal and physical custody to Jason Collins. Effective immediately. Mrs. Collins, you are to maintain a minimum distance of 100 yards from the child until further psychological evaluation can be conducted. Mr. Jacob Collins is to be investigated for potential perjury and participation in document forgery. Ashley gasped. She looked like she'd just been slapped by God. Jake slumped in his chair. I didn't move, didn't gloat, didn't smile, because it wasn't victory. It was justice. Outside the courtroom, Ashley came storming after me, her heels clapping across the hallway like gunshots. You think this is over, Jason? I'll get him back. You can't erase me. I turned around slowly. You did that yourself. And with that, I walked toward the parking lot where Ethan was waiting with my parents, holding the same photo album his mother tried to destroy. For the first time in a long time, I was walking towards something worth fighting for. The first night Ethan slept in my new place, he curled up on the couch beside me instead of his room. No words, no questions, just a quiet, steady presence like he didn't want to lose me again. I didn't force him into a bed. I just pulled a blanket over him and stayed awake watching the rise and fall of his chest, reminding myself it was real. He was here. He was safe. And this time, no one was taking him from me. The next morning, I cooked breakfast, burned the eggs, dropped the spatula, swore under my breath. But Ethan laughed. Actually laughed. Not the polite kind kids give to strangers. A real, belly-deep laugh that sounded like everything I had lost and everything I had back. You're not very good at this, he grinned, sitting at the counter, legs swinging. I cracked a smile. First breakfast back. I get a pass. He tilted his head. You gonna be around now? I set the frying pan down and walked over to him. Always. From now on, it's you and me. That okay? He nodded slowly. I think so. That night, he asked to sleep in his room. We were building something. Something fragile, but real. The days after court were a blur. Meetings with counselors, school administrators, legal follow-ups. Ashley tried to reach out 3 times through her lawyer, begging for visitation. Not because she missed him, but because the pressure was closing in. She'd been publicly named in connection with Frank Delgado's case. One of the surveillance clips hit the local news. The comments section ripped her apart. She was unraveling. Good. Let her feel what it's like to lose control. I didn't deny her request outright. Instead, I set strict conditions through my attorney. Supervised, neutral location, no physical contact until Ethan said so. She declined. Said I was poisoning him. No, Ashley. You did that with your own hands. One afternoon, I took Ethan to the lake. The same one we used to go to before everything went to hell. He was quiet in the back seat, staring out the window like he wasn't sure how to feel about it. When we got there, he stood at the edge of the water, hands in his jacket pockets. I joined him. Didn't speak. Just waited. Then he said, "Did you stop loving Mom?" That question was a punch to the chest. But I didn't flinch. I loved her, I said. A lot. But love doesn't mean letting someone hurt you, or lie to you, or take things from you. He looked up at me. She lied a lot. I know. Did she lie about me too? I dropped to one knee and placed my hand on his shoulder. You were never a lie. You're the best thing I ever had, Ethan. The one thing she couldn't twist. He nodded, a little tear slipping down his cheek. I wiped it away. Is it okay if I don't miss her? He asked. Yeah, I whispered. It's okay. We sat by the water for an hour, talking about school, cartoons, his favorite superhero, all the things I had missed. And with every word, every moment, I felt the space between us shrink. It wasn't easy. He still had bad dreams sometimes, still asked questions I couldn't answer. But he stopped calling Jake Dad, and that mattered more than anything. That night, as I tucked him in, he said, "I'm glad you came back." "I never left you," I told him. "Not in here." I tapped his chest. "And not in here." I tapped mine. He smiled and turned over to sleep. Outside his door, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like years. Because no matter what came next, the lawsuits, the media, the damage, I had this. I had him. And that was more than Ashley would ever hold again. It was early evening when I got the message. A simple notification on my phone from Caleb, "Check your email. Final piece is in." I opened it sitting on the porch, Ethan playing with his toy cars just inside the screen door. He was laughing, making crashing noises, narrating some battle between a fire truck and a monster truck. That sound grounded me and made what I saw next even more infuriating. Inside the folder Caleb had sent were copies of offshore account transactions. Ashley's name, Jake's name, tied to multiple wire transfers from a company under Frank Delgado's shell corporations. She wasn't just connected to Frank. She was part of the funneling operation. Caleb even had surveillance footage of her handing off a USB drive to one of Delgado's men outside a yoga studio. She wasn't just morally bankrupt. She was criminally involved. I forwarded everything to Melissa. She replied within minutes. "This is enough to bury them. You want to go public or press charges first?" "Both," I typed. Let the world see her fall in real time. The next morning, I met with the district attorney. By evening, a warrant had been signed for Ashley's official indictment on conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of documents, and potential accessory to laundering through Delgado's channels. Jake wasn't off the hook either. They froze his assets. His accounts. The villa? Seized pending investigation. All that luxury? Gone. Just like that. But I wasn't done. See, Ashley had always loved appearances. She was obsessed with her image, the loyal military wife, the survivor, the influencer mom. So I made sure the truth had its turn in the spotlight. With Caleb's help, we compiled everything into a clean, legal report. No revenge porn, no private photos. Just facts, documents, footage, timelines. We sent it to a veterans advocacy blog that had once profiled Ashley and Ethan while I was deployed. They had painted her like a hero, a symbol of resilience. I emailed the editor directly. "This is what your hero was doing while her husband was on the battlefield." They ran the story within 24 hours. Wife of deployed soldier implicated in fraud ring. Child endangered, custody revoked. The headline spread like wildfire. Ashley's face was everywhere, not smiling anymore, but blurred out in mugshots and headlines. Every one of her followers turned on her. The comments were brutal. Her fake brand deals dropped her in a heartbeat. That night, Jake called me. I didn't pick up. Let it ring. Again. Again. Then came the message. "You got what you wanted. She's going down." I didn't know, man. I swear I didn't know. I didn't respond. Because he did know. And I wasn't interested in saving anyone anymore, except my son. 3 days later, I stood in front of the villa again. But this time, with a court-appointed official by my side and a document in my hand. A formal claim on the property. Turned out, part of that house had been paid for with my deployment funds, and Jake hadn't paid a dime into the joint mortgage transfer. Legally, the house was still half mine. Ashley wasn't there to see it, though. She was already behind bars, denied bail due to flight risk. Jake was escorted out within an hour. No yelling, no threats. He just looked at me, hollow-eyed and small. "You're not gonna believe this," he muttered, "but I think I loved her." I stared at him. "No, Jake. You loved winning. And now you've lost." I walked through the villa one last time. The same marble floors. The same perfume-soaked air. But now it was empty. Silent. Stripped of all the poison that once lived here. I left a single note on the marble counter. "This was never yours. Neither the house, nor the boy, nor the future." Then I locked the door from the outside. Because the only thing I wanted now was peace. It was the first weekend in months that felt quiet. No courtrooms, no subpoenas, no messages from Ashley's lawyer trying to manipulate the system back in her favor. Just a Saturday morning. Me, Ethan, a beat-up fishing rod, and a lake that hadn't changed since before everything fell apart. We sat on the old dock, legs swinging, sunlight hitting the water just right. Ethan held the rod, but I could tell his mind was somewhere else. Maybe on his mom, maybe on the past, maybe just trying to make sense of all the broken pieces people handed him and expected him to glue back together. He didn't speak for a while. Then finally, "Is she ever coming back?" I didn't lie. "Not now. Not ever again. She'll be gone for a while," I said. The things she did, they weren't just wrong. They were dangerous. She hurt people. She hurt you. He looked down at the water, the reflection of his small face rippling with every toss of the breeze. "She used to be nice. Before Jake. Sometimes people wear a mask so long they forget they're wearing one," I told him. "And sometimes, the person underneath isn't who we hoped they were." "Do you still love her?" That question again. But this time, I didn't hesitate. "No, I don't. I loved who I thought she was. But that person wasn't real." He nodded, then suddenly cast a line into the water like he was trying to launch it into space. I laughed. "Easy, cowboy. We're not trying to hook sharks." He smiled, but it faded just as quick. "Does this make me bad? For not missing her much?" I shook my head and put my hand on his shoulder. "No, son. It makes you strong. You're allowed to protect your heart, even from people you once loved." That night, we ate dinner with my parents. Homemade pizza, root beer floats. Ethan told Grandpa about his fishing technique, which involved mostly splashing and shouting, and my mom cried when he handed her a crayon drawing of the four of us together. He had erased Ashley. He drew me holding his hand. And in the background, our old house. I almost lost it. Later, after he was asleep, my dad pulled me aside. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed me one. "You did good," he said. "A lesser man would have gone to jail or the grave by now." I almost did, I admitted. That first night, when I kicked the door in, I didn't know if I'd come out alive. "But you didn't break," he said. "You bent. You bled. But you didn't break." I looked around the old living room, the photos on the shelves, the memories I thought were lost. "No, I didn't," I said. "Because of him." And it was true. Ethan had saved me as much as I saved him. A month later, the court finalized full, permanent custody in my favor. Ashley's rights were stripped. Jake fled the city, his reputation scorched and career ruined. The villa was sold. I donated half of my share to a veterans child recovery program, and I bought a small home outside the city. One with a porch, a backyard, and a bedroom Ethan picked out himself, painted dark blue with stars on the ceiling. He called it the real home. We still had hard days. Sometimes he cried at night. Sometimes I did, when he wasn't looking. But we healed. Together. And one day, when he was older, I'd tell him the full truth. Not out of anger. Not to shame her. But so he'd understand that strength doesn't always look like war. Sometimes, it looks like walking away. Sometimes, it looks like starting over. And sometimes, it looks like a father kneeling by his son's bed whispering, "No matter who walks away, I never will." I wasn't supposed to hear it. She was in the kitchen, lights dimmed, back turned to me as she whispered into her phone. It was almost midnight. I had just come back from a late business dinner with potential investors, too tired to announce myself. I slid my shoes off at the door and stepped quietly down the hall, thinking maybe she was watching one of her shows. Instead, I froze in place when I heard her voice. "Tonight, I'll finally kick that fool out, and my lover will move in with me." That sentence, sharp, venomous, soaked in arrogance, carved straight through my spine. I didn't breathe. My name is Ryan, 37. I built my marketing firm from the ground up. I gave Amanda, my wife of 6 years, everything. And I do mean everything. A lake house in Wisconsin. A white Range Rover with her initials engraved on the seats. 3 vacations a year. Spa days and shopping weekends. Everything, except, apparently, whatever her degenerate side piece was offering her behind my back. I stood there, leaning slightly on the hallway wall, hearing her giggle like a teenager. Her voice softened as she dropped her pitch to a murmur. "He has no clue. I'll cry a little, act hurt, maybe even say he was abusive. No one will question it. Then we're free. Finally, free." Free? I gave that woman a life people dream about. And she was going to throw me out of my house? I took one step into the kitchen. She didn't hear me until I spoke. "If you're done, Amanda," I said, voice steady like a blade, "then so am I." Her hand jerked. The phone slipped from her ear and clattered against the marble counter. Her mouth hung open, painted in that smug crimson lipstick she thought made her look dangerously elegant. She stared at me like she'd just seen a ghost. How long have you, Ryan?" It's not what it sounds like. I cut her off with a raised hand. I had already heard everything I needed. I wasn't interested in the amateur theater she was about to launch into. This house is mine. You, your lover, and your lies are no longer welcome here. She blinked hard. Her face went from fake surprise to offended confusion in a heartbeat, like I was the one ruining her fantasy. Are you serious right now? She hissed. You're making a huge mistake. You don't even understand. No, I said, walking past her to the front door. You don't understand. I already hired security. She laughed, loud, desperate. You're bluffing. But as if the universe wanted to make my timing cinematic, headlights pierced through the frosted glass beside the entrance. Her lover had arrived. I watched her whole body stiffen like a puppet caught mid-act. A black duffel bag dropped on the front porch. A man, tall, bearded, maybe early 30s, grinned at her through the door like some smug savior from her twisted love story. Amanda started toward it, fumbling for the handle. Then two large men stepped out of the side hallway, Michael and Dean. Both ex-military, both silent, both waiting for my nod. I gave it. Amanda's lover barely got 2 steps into the house before he was pinned and escorted back to his car like the low-life homewrecker he was. Amanda screamed, throwing curses and wild threats, but they didn't touch her. They simply opened the door, gestured to the lawn, and let her know in a voice flat as steel, you're no longer welcome here. You've got 5 minutes to collect your things. Anything left behind will be incinerated. She was in complete shock. And I was cold. I felt nothing. Just pure, calculated fire burning in my chest. I froze her accounts while she was screaming in the driveway. Took back the car key fob. Called the lawyer. Cut her name from every document with surgical precision. That night, I slept like a soldier after battle. And when I woke up the next morning, 76 missed calls. Mostly from her. Some from her sister. One from her mother. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. Because Amanda's nightmare had just begun. And I was only getting started. The thing about betrayal is it never really hides well. It leaves traces. Stains on the soul. Echoes in the routine. I should have seen it coming. No, scratch that. I did see it coming. I just ignored it because I was in love with the woman I thought she was, not the viper she turned into. It wasn't just the phone call that night. That was just the final straw, the bullet through the windshield. But long before Amanda whispered sweet poison to her side piece, I noticed the cracks. Subtle at first, then glaring. She used to kiss me goodbye every morning. Then one day, she stopped. No reason. No argument. Just stopped. She used to text me random things throughout the day. Look at this dog meme. Miss you. Let's get sushi tonight. Then those turned into one-word replies. Cold. Hollow. Like someone answering a customer service chat. Then the perfume changed. She always wore Chanel when we went out, said it reminded her of Paris, where we got engaged. But then it was something fruitier. Younger. I caught a whiff of it on her scarf once and made a stupid joke. Smells like high school gym class in here. She flinched. Now I know why. The emotional distance was growing faster than I could cover. I thought it was stress, maybe depression. I asked her to go to therapy with me. She said I was being paranoid. That's her favorite word, paranoid. She used it when I asked about the late nights out with her friends, the makeup she'd apply before yoga, the sudden need for privacy on her laptop. I'm a marketer by trade. I read behavior for a living. But when it came to Amanda, I silenced my instincts. Until one afternoon, a week before the phone call. I was working from home. She thought I was at the office. She came in all dolled up, humming to herself. I stayed in the guest room, curious, and maybe a little hopeful she was planning something romantic. She wasn't. Her phone was on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. One message lit up the screen. I missed last night already. Your body was made for sin. I stared at it like a fool. My heart didn't just break, it disintegrated. I took a screenshot, emailed it to myself, and put the phone back without a sound. That night, she brought me my favorite dinner, lasagna. She laughed, made small talk, even poured us wine. She called me babe. I chewed glass and smiled. That's when I started preparing. I hired a PI, got security ready, froze the accounts quietly. I wasn't going to just catch her. I was going to bury her little fairy tale. And yet, even with all that knowledge, nothing compared to hearing her actually say it aloud. Whispering my demise like it was some sexy secret. I'll finally kick that fool out. Fool. She thought I was the fool. But that night, as she stood outside screaming into the night while her lover was being escorted out like a drunk at a wedding, I saw her real face. Not the one she showed to dinner guests. The real one. The cold, calculating one. The face of a woman who had already rewritten the story in her mind, where she was the victim and I was the villain. Too bad I kept the receipts. I printed every message, took photos of her phone, recorded her phone call, forwarded it all to my lawyer. Her lies weren't just exposed, they were legally documented. She wasn't getting the house, or the car, or my reputation. I wasn't going to just survive this. I was going to win. Amanda came back 2 nights later. I had security let her onto the property for exactly 15 minutes. She stomped up the driveway like a woman on a mission, heels clacking, sunglasses still on at 9 p.m., fake confidence oozing from her every step. She looked like someone playing the role of a strong woman in a low-budget drama. I waited in the living room, arms crossed, already exhausted by what I knew was coming. She didn't even greet me. You can't just kick me out of our house, Ryan. You completely lost your damn mind. I didn't flinch. It's my house. Your name's not on the deed. You want to be gone, remember? She rolled her eyes and scoffed like I was a child. That was a private conversation. You had no right to listen in on me. I actually laughed. So you admit it. That shut her up for a second. I took a slow step forward. Tell me, Amanda, were you going to do it that night? Toss my things on the lawn? Pretend to cry? Tell the neighbors I hit you? I've seen this movie before. She folded her arms, still wearing that smug little smirk. You're being dramatic. It wasn't serious. Just fun. You don't get it. You've been boring for years, Ryan. That hit like a sucker punch. Not because it hurt, because it was so brutally cheap. Like I was disposable. Boring. I repeated. I worked my *** off to give you everything you asked for. The house. The vacations. That ridiculous necklace you just had to have in Milan. And while I was building our future, you were letting some broke joke of a man play house in your fantasies. She snapped back without hesitation. At least he sees me. You don't. You're always at work, or thinking about work, or talking about numbers. I needed something more. More than loyalty? More than respect? I asked, my voice calm but trembling underneath. You could have talked to me, but you chose deceit. Amanda tilted her head, her expression hardening. Maybe I didn't want to fix it. Ever think of that? I stared at her, trying to find even a flicker of guilt, but there was none. Just that same self-serving arrogance she'd worn for the last 6 months. I know everything, I said finally. The texts. The calls. Your plan to cry abuse. You even used that line before with your ex. I found everything. Her face froze. She hadn't expected that. You were going to ruin me. Gaslight me. Make me the bad guy, I continued. But I was 2 steps ahead. She tried to compose herself, but the cracks were showing. Fine. So what now? You kick me out and think that's it? You'll end up alone. No woman will ever trust you after this. I shook my head slowly. You don't get to flip this. I gave you everything and you treated me like trash. I'm done begging for love from someone who only knows how to lie and manipulate. Amanda's face contorted with fury. You'll regret this. No, Amanda, I said, walking past her toward the door. You will. Security escorted her out again. She screamed at them this time. Called me every name in the book. But it didn't matter anymore. For the first time in years, my home was finally quiet. And I didn't miss her voice at all. That night after she left again, I sat in the living room, alone, lights off, a glass of bourbon in my hand. No music. No TV. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the buzz of my mind replaying every lie Amanda ever told me. It was like a floodgate had opened. Things I dismissed as harmless or casual were now screaming in my memory. All the girl trips that never had pictures. The night she came home with damp hair but claimed she never left the house. The password changes on her phone. The sudden urge to be more private in her personal life. It was all there, hiding in plain sight. And I had been blind. Willfully blind. Because I loved her. Because I believed in marriage. Because I thought that if I kept being the good man, the patient one, the provider, she'd eventually appreciate me again. Instead, she treated my loyalty like weakness. Like I was some background character in the drama she was writing. And now that I had flipped the script, she didn't know how to react. The 76 missed calls turned into messages, long, manipulative paragraphs followed by voice notes that swung between tearful apologies and explosive blame. I listened to one. Ryan, you don't understand how hard it's been for me. You're always so cold. I didn't want to hurt you. I was just lonely. Lonely. She cheated, lied, and plotted to destroy my life. Because she was lonely. I didn't bother replying. I forwarded every message to my lawyer and blocked her number. She tried calling from other phones. Then her sister texted me. You need to talk to her. She's breaking down. Good. Let her break. Let her feel the hollow pit that I've been sinking into for the past 2 years. Every time I looked at her and felt that something was missing, something I couldn't name until now. I stayed quiet. I didn't rant on social media. I didn't tell mutual friends. I let the facts speak for themselves. But the silence, that was what really drove her insane. 2 days later, I received an email from her. Subject line, please, just one conversation. She poured out some nonsense about how her lover wasn't who she thought he was, how he'd gotten violent when she told him I'd thrown him out, how he ghosted her after the incident. She was scared now, lost, and claimed she had made a terrible mistake. I stared at the screen, then closed the email. I wasn't her safety net anymore. She had chosen the fantasy, the affair, the lie. Let her live in it. I changed the locks again, upgraded the cameras, told the doorman at my office not to let her in if she showed up. I wasn't just protecting myself from her anymore. I was erasing every part of her from my life, like a virus being scrubbed from a hard drive. But even with all of that, I'll admit something. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Not because I missed her, but because I missed who I thought she was. That's the worst part of betrayal. You don't just lose a person. You lose your own memories. Every good moment becomes tainted. Every smile feels fake. You start to question your reality. Was she ever really mine? Did she ever really love me? Was it all just a game to her? And the truth is, I may never know. But what I do know is this. I survived the collapse. And now, I was learning how to live in the quiet. After the silence came the rage. Not the kind you shout with. Not the kind that breaks things or explodes in public. Mine was colder, quieter. It sat deep in my chest like a block of ice, heavy and sharp around the edges. It showed up in small things. I started driving with the windows down, even in the cold, just to feel something. I stopped replying to friends' messages because I couldn't pretend to be okay anymore. I took her framed photos off the shelves, not to burn them, not to throw them, just to avoid looking into the eyes of someone who had kissed me in the morning and betrayed me by nightfall. You don't realize how many corners of your life someone fills until they're gone. Amanda was in the playlist we used to cook to. The mug that said, his on my kitchen shelf. The name of the damn Wi-Fi network. Everything was infected. One day, I found her favorite scarf tangled in the laundry. I held it for a second, and before I knew it, I was gripping it like it could answer me. Why? That question lived in my head rent-free. Why did she do it? Why risk everything? Why lie to my face with such ease? And every time I thought about asking her, I remembered that call. Tonight, I'll finally kick that fool out. She didn't just betray me. She planned to erase me. That's when the anger started to mutate into something worse, emptiness. It's easy to feel alive when you're angry. But when that runs out and all you're left with is silence, that's when it gets dangerous. I couldn't focus at work. My assistant noticed. So did my clients. I found myself drifting off mid-meeting, replaying old arguments in my head, wondering if that was the moment she stopped loving me or if she ever had. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped shaving. I looked in the mirror and saw a man I barely recognized. Eyes sunken, face hollow, smile forced. It wasn't just the end of a marriage. It felt like the end of me. One night, around 3 a.m., I drove out to the lake house alone. The same place where I proposed to her. I sat on the dock in complete darkness, just the sound of the water slapping the wood below. And I cried. I cried for the man I used to be. For the man who believed in Amanda. For the man who thought loyalty meant something. It wasn't loud. No sobbing or screaming. Just quiet tears running down my face like I'd sprung a leak and didn't know how to stop it. That's when I realized something important. She didn't just cheat on me. She broke me. And I had let her. I gave her everything, my trust, my heart, my future. And in return, she handed me a slow-motion collapse wrapped in pretty words and fake smiles. But even in that moment, alone, broken, exhausted, I felt a tiny shift. A spark. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was something. I wiped my face, stood up from the dock, and looked out at the moonlit water. Amanda was gone. But I was still here. And I wasn't going to stay broken. The healing didn't come in waves, it came in fragments. Little moments that didn't feel like much at the time. Like waking up one morning and realizing I hadn't checked my phone for her messages. Or going through an entire day without thinking of what I could have done differently. It started when I changed the locks on the lake house. That place had been a shrine to a lie. The way she used to run barefoot across the deck, wine glass in hand, laughing like she was in a perfume commercial. I used to replay those memories like a fool, imagining that love lived there. But after I cried on that dock, I went inside, threw out the scented candles she liked, and stripped the bed of the floral sheets she insisted we buy in Paris. I opened the windows and let the cold air wash everything out. I wasn't going to preserve the smell of betrayal any longer. A few days later, I opened a storage unit in town. Not for my things, for hers. Every pair of heels, every piece of lingerie she wore while lying to me, every happy wife, happy life, wall decoration she smugly hung. I packed them all up. Carefully. Neatly. Not out of respect, but closure. She tried reaching out again. This time through her lawyer. Apparently, she wanted to discuss reconciliation. Her lover had disappeared, just as I expected. Probably realized she wasn't the fantasy woman she pretended to be. I heard whispers that he was unemployed, living off some savings, and now ghosting her when she tried to contact him. Classic. She was alone. And now she remembered I existed. I declined the meeting. Sent my lawyer instead. He delivered the message plainly. There will be no reconciliation. There will be no discussion. There will only be legal procedure. That broke something in her, I think. A few days later, she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking, different from the usual manipulative tone. Ryan, I know I messed everything up. I was stupid, selfish. I don't even recognize the woman I became. Please, can we just talk? I don't want to lose you. Not like this. I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of mercy. If I replied, I'd only be giving her a chance to rewrite the narrative. To cry, twist things, maybe even try to seduce her way back in. But this wasn't about punishment anymore. This was about survival. I started going to the gym again. Got back into my morning routine. Cut sugar, cleaned the fridge, rearranged the living room. One day, I stood in the mirror and saw my old self coming back. Not quite the same, maybe scarred, but solid. Strong. One afternoon, I ran into an old friend from college, Jess. She always had this no-nonsense attitude, the kind that could slice through any awkward silence. We grabbed coffee and talked for hours. Not romantically, not emotionally, just talked. It reminded me that the world still existed outside of Amanda, that people could laugh without hiding things, that trust was still possible, even if it had to be earned slowly. It hit me later that night. I had turned a corner. For months, I had been living in the wreckage, picking up pieces of who I was, trying to rebuild from the ground up. But now, I was doing more than rebuilding. I was reinventing. Amanda's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the reset. And I was finally ready to write the next chapter. By the time the divorce papers were finalized, I was no longer angry. I was resolved. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because I was drinking black coffee at 7 a.m., checking emails when the notification came through. Final decree of dissolution. Signed. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't expect it, but because it felt surreal. It was official. Amanda was no longer my wife. There wasn't a celebration. No champagne cork, no toast to freedom. Just quiet. A peaceful silence that didn't need to be filled anymore. I leaned back in my chair and let the feeling sink in. It didn't hurt. That was the surprise. I thought I'd feel a deep sting, maybe a sense of finality that would crack me open. But instead, I felt weightless. She texted later that day. Amanda, so, it's really done. I didn't reply. She tried again. Amanda, do you feel better now? Like you've won. Still, no reply. The truth is, I didn't feel like I'd won. Because this wasn't a game. There was no prize. No satisfaction in seeing someone self-destruct. I felt clarity. I felt distance. I felt finished. That weekend, I visited my parents for the first time in months. My mom hugged me like I'd just come home from war. My dad patted my back and said nothing, which in his language meant everything. Over dinner, my mom asked me a question I hadn't really considered yet. So what happens next? It echoed in my head for days. What has happened next? I didn't have an answer. But I knew what wouldn't happen. I wasn't going to chase closure from Amanda. I wasn't going to let her back into my life in any form. No friendship. No slow rebuild. No late night, what if calls. That door was shut. Permanently. But that didn't mean the healing was complete. There were still shadows that lingered. Trust issues that whispered at night. The fear that no matter how cautious I am, I could be fooled again. But I also knew this. I had made a decision. And for once, it wasn't reactive. It wasn't emotional. It was deliberate. I decided to protect my peace fiercely. That meant boundaries. Real ones. I got rid of anything she'd touched in my finances. I had the bank issue new accounts, changed my passwords, rerouted my mail. Her emails went straight to archive. Her photos? Backed up in a folder I'll never open. Her number? Blocked. Not because I was bitter, but because I deserved a clean break. One night, a mutual friend texted me out of the blue. She's telling people you were controlling, that you froze her out and emotionally abandoned her. I stared at the message for a minute and then simply wrote back. Let her talk. The truth doesn't need an audience. I meant it. I didn't need to clear my name or fight for reputation points. I had the truth, and I had peace. She, on the other hand, had her lies and whatever version of herself she still believed in. The last time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I was walking out of a bookstore downtown. She was across the street, holding a coffee, talking to someone. Her laugh sounded the same, but her face had changed. More makeup, more tension. She looked over, caught my eyes, and froze. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just nodded once and kept walking. Because that chapter was over. And some doors? You never reopen. There's this moment that happens months after the storm, when the dust has settled, the noise has died down, and you're just sitting in your own space, alone, but no longer lonely. That's when the real clarity arrives. I was sitting in the backyard, a cold beer in one hand, my dog lying across my feet, the sky dimming into a soft orange like some kind of quiet apology from the universe. It wasn't the grand finale I thought I needed. It was better. It was peace. And in that stillness, I asked myself, what the hell did I learn from all this? So here it is. Not wrapped in cliches. Not sugar-coated. Just raw, unfiltered truth. Lesson 1. Never ignore the shift in energy. Men are taught to suck it up, to be logical, unemotional. But your gut? That instinct you bury under responsibilities and routines? It knows. When Amanda stopped touching me, stopped asking about my day, when her laugh didn't quite reach her eyes anymore, I felt it. But I rationalized it. I made excuses for it. If something feels off in your relationship, don't be ashamed to say it out loud. You don't have to accuse. Just ask. Open the door before it gets locked from the other side. Lesson 2. Loving her doesn't mean losing yourself. I thought that being a good husband meant giving her everything. Time, money, sacrifices. I chipped away at who I was to keep her happy. And she used that weakness against me. Real love should never demand your silence. If you're constantly adjusting to avoid conflict, that's not love. That's fear dressed in loyalty. Lesson 3. Betrayal isn't about the other man. At first, I obsessed over him. Who was he? What did he have that I didn't? But the truth is, it was never about him. It was about her. Her choices. Her entitlement. Her hunger for attention and drama. She could have slept with a rock, and it still would have been betrayal. Don't waste your energy on the third party. The person who made vows to you is the one who broke them. Lesson 4. Protect yourself, but not by becoming bitter. It's tempting to shut down after something like this. To label all women as dangerous. To swear off love, trust, connection. But bitterness is just pain that never got processed. I let myself grieve. I cried. I screamed in my car more than once. But then I released it. Because carrying her betrayal into my next chapter would mean she still owns me. And she doesn't. Not anymore. Lesson 5. Make your peace louder than her lies. She'll talk. They always do. She'll paint herself as the victim, tell half-truths wrapped in sob stories. Let her. I didn't defend myself. I didn't post on social media or ask friends to take sides. I just lived well. Moved on. The people who matter saw the truth in how I handled it. And those who believed her? They were never really my people anyway. Now, if I had to offer one piece of advice to a man who's where I was back then, it's this. Don't try to get back what broke you. She's going to reach out. Cry. Apologize. Blame it all on stress, childhood trauma, not feeling seen. Don't fall for it. Closure isn't something she gives you. It's something you give yourself. You're going to be okay. Maybe not right away. Maybe not for months. But one morning, you'll wake up, and her name won't be the first thing in your mind. And when that happens, smile. Because you made it. You walked through fire and came out with your soul intact. That's not just survival. That's power. And it's all yours now. His hand was inches from his jeans. Mine was already on the Glock. I didn't yell. Didn't panic. Just stood there, at the doorframe of my own damn bedroom, watching my half-naked wife and some stranger scramble like kids caught by their parents. She was completely exposed. No shame. No apology in her eyes. Just irritation. Like I had bad timing. He reached again. I cocked the gun. Don't, I said, voice low. I've waited too long for this moment. You're not leaving until I say so. Emma froze. The guy, some muscle-bound punk with an athlete's body and the IQ of a garden hose, raised both hands in the air like I was a cop. His towel slipped slightly. I didn't flinch. You're Tyler, right? He stammered. Man, I didn't know she was married. I swear. I said shut up. I never broke eye contact with him, but I could feel her behind him, breathing heavy, her perfume mixed with sweat and betrayal. My brain wasn't even trying to process this normally. Everything felt slow, surreal, like I was watching it on a screen. Like this couldn't actually be happening in my house, in our bed. You brought him into our bedroom, I said, voice cracking for the first time. Where I kissed you goodnight for 6 years. Where we tried to make a baby. And you brought this. Emma finally spoke. You were supposed to be in Phoenix. That's what she said. Not I'm sorry, not I can explain, not even please don't shoot him. Just, you were supposed to be in Phoenix. I lowered the gun, but not the tension. My heart was pounding through my ribcage like it wanted out. I wasn't the violent type. But in that moment, I understood how easy it could be to become someone else. A man pushed past the edge. So it's my fault for coming home early? I asked. She didn't answer. Just grabbed a silk robe from the floor, tied it like she was covering up for a quick trip to the kitchen, not for the aftermath of adultery. I stepped forward, real slow, and looked him right in the eyes. You got 5 seconds to put your pants on before I do something you'll regret for the rest of your short, stupid life. He didn't argue. He moved faster than I thought possible. Pants. Shirt. Sneakers. Out the bedroom like a ghost was chasing him. I heard the front door slam seconds later. And then it was just me and her. Emma. The woman who promised me forever. Who cried at our wedding like she'd never betray me. Who kissed me goodbye at the airport just 2 days ago and told me to hurry home. That woman no longer existed. She turned her back on me, lit a cigarette with shaking fingers, and muttered, it wasn't supposed to be like this. No, I said, setting the gun gently on the dresser. It was supposed to be us. You and me. She exhaled smoke like poison. You've been distant. Always working. Always tired. I felt invisible. And your solution was what? Let some guy ply you in our bed. Her voice turned ice. At least he saw me. I laughed. A real, broken, bitter sound. Oh, he saw you all right. I bet half the gym has. She flinched. Good. I wasn't done yet. You think this is just about one night? I asked. You think I didn't notice the phone turned face down? The cold shoulder? The new lingerie you never wore for me? Her silence was all the answer I needed. But I didn't explode. Didn't scream. I was beyond that now. Instead, I walked to the window, looked out at the driveway where his Tesla had been. Tell me everything, Emma. Everything. Because if I have to dig it up myself, it won't end well. She didn't say a word. And right then, I knew. This wasn't the first time. This was just the first time I caught her. After he left, the silence didn't feel like silence. It felt like static, loud, choking, boiling just under the skin. Emma sat at the edge of the bed, legs crossed like we were having some casual talk about groceries, not the fact that I just found her screwing some gym clown in our bedroom. I watched her from the doorway. My own wife. The woman I used to make coffee for every morning. The same woman who would once rush to hug me at the door now stared at me like I was an inconvenience. I don't know what you want me to say, she muttered. I want the truth, I replied coldly. Start with when it began. She lit another cigarette like we were in some French drama. 2 months ago. That hit like a brick. 2 months, I repeated, slow and bitter. So that weekend you said you were at Madison's bachelorette party? She didn't answer. Yeah, I nodded. That was the weekend I drove 5 hours to surprise you. You remember that? The locked hotel room. No answer. You texting me you were getting a massage? Still no answer. You lied. Right to my face. Again and again. Emma took a drag and let the smoke out slow, trying to look composed. But I saw the twitch in her lip. The shift in her leg. She was unraveling, just slower than expected. I moved closer, leaned against the wall. Who is he? His name's Chase. Figures. She glanced up, finally. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. But you kept pushing me away. And so you let him in? I snapped. Into our home? Into our bed. You weren't there for me, Tyler. She shouted suddenly, jumping up. You stopped touching me. Stop talking to me like a man talks to his wife. I needed more than what you were giving. I stared at her, my voice dangerously low. I was out there working double shifts to pay for this house. For you. I wasn't cheating, wasn't clubbing, wasn't doing anything but trying to build a damn future. Her face twisted. You think that makes you a good husband? Money doesn't fix everything. I was lonely. I pointed toward the door. And Chase fixed that for you? She said nothing. Just stood there, robe slipping from her shoulder, revealing the truth I didn't want to see anymore. Her skin didn't belong to me now. She gave it away. You could have talked to me, Emma. I tried, she whispered, almost crying. No, I snapped. You didn't. You gave up. You replaced communication with C***M-filled towels and secret hotel rooms. The slap came fast. Reflex, maybe. I didn't even move. Just took it. But something in her eyes shifted. Like she finally saw what she'd done. The line she crossed. The damage she caused. I stepped back. I should have known the moment you started locking your phone. Hiding it like it was a bomb. You thought I wouldn't notice? I just wanted something to be mine, she said weakly. I laughed without humor. Well, congratulations. Now you have it. The room felt like ash. Dead things floating in the air. Unsaid words burning through the oxygen. I'm going to ask you one last time, I said. Was it only him? She hesitated. That half-second pause? That silence told me everything I needed to know. The second she hesitated, I knew. She didn't have to speak. That flicker in her eyes, the way her throat tensed up like a warning, yeah, it was all there. I've stared down liars before, at work, in business, hell, even friends. But watching it happen in my own bedroom, from the woman I once thought I'd die beside, that broke something I didn't even know could be broken. How many? I asked, voice sharp. Emma crossed her arms and turned her back to me, walking slowly to the window like she was about to deliver some poetic excuse. It wasn't like that. How many, Emma? I repeated. 3, she said after a pause. Before Chase. I didn't react. Not at first. Just let that number sink in like poison. 3 others. Not one mistake. Not even 2. But a pattern. A damn routine. While I was out there trying to keep our life from collapsing, she was giving out pieces of herself to anyone who paid her a compliment. She looked over her shoulder. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I stepped closer. You lied even when you didn't have to. You lied with your smile. With your, I love yous. You hugged me with hands that had just been all over another man. Her mouth trembled, but there were no tears. Of course there weren't. Crying requires regret, and Emma didn't feel sorry. She felt caught. I pointed to the bed. That's where we made plans. Do you remember that? Sitting right there, naming the baby we lost. Her lip quivered. She didn't speak. Do they even know you're married? I asked. Did you pretend to be single, or was being a wife part of the kink? She spun around. Don't talk to me like that. Like what? I barked. Like a man who gave you everything and got spit on in return? She blinked. That was the first time I saw her flinch, not out of fear, but shame. Just a flicker. Gone just as fast. I dropped down into the armchair by the door, exhausted from rage. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't about to let her see that. You said you loved me last night. You texted me good night. While he was probably still in this room. Emma sat at the vanity table, suddenly looking smaller than before. Her robe had slipped again, but I didn't care. I didn't see a woman anymore. I saw a performance. I did love you, she whispered. Part of me still does. You don't cheat on people you love, I shot back. You don't risk someone you love. People make mistakes, she said defensively. No. People forget anniversaries. People burn dinner. People get into fights and say things they don't mean. You didn't make a mistake, Emma. You made a series of choices. You built this. She looked down. I was scared. Of what? Of feeling like I didn't matter anymore. That's when something inside me snapped. I stood up, walked toward her, leaned in just close enough. Then maybe you should have talked to your husband. Not your personal trainer. Not the bartender. Not whoever the hell else. She didn't answer. I turned away. If I stayed close to her, I'd say something I'd regret, or worse, do something I couldn't take back. I walked into the hallway and leaned against the wall. My heart was slamming inside my chest, and my breathing was ragged. I thought back to our first apartment. Cheap place, thin walls, barely any heat in the winter. But we were happy. At least I thought we were. We shared pizza on the floor, made love like we didn't care about the world, whispered dreams into the dark. And now this. A war zone in my own house. I closed my eyes. 3 other men. And then Chase. And God knows who else. She didn't love me. She loved what I gave her. And when that wasn't enough, she found it elsewhere. I stayed leaning against that hallway wall for a long time, staring at nothing. I could still smell him in the air. His cologne. His sweat. It clung to the room like some invisible mark I couldn't wash off. She never came after me. She stayed in the bedroom, probably still thinking of ways to twist the story, to paint herself as the victim. But I didn't need more words. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I went downstairs, sat on the edge of the couch where her heels were still tossed like trophies, picked one up, stared at the scuff on the bottom. That same heel was on her foot the night we went to her company's New Year's party. She danced with me, kissed me at midnight, promised that this year would be different, promised to reconnect. Turns out her idea of reconnecting involved someone else's bed. My phone buzzed. I ignored it, but it buzzed again and again. Finally, I checked. It was a text from my buddy Jordan. "Bro, are you okay? I just saw Chase at the gym. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Said something about almost getting shot." Of course Chase had to run his mouth. I called Jordan immediately. He picked up on the first ring. "Tyler, what the hell is going on, man?" "Nothing I can say in one breath," I muttered. "Is it true?" "He was with Emma." I hesitated. "Yeah, in my house. In my bed." There was a silence on the line. Then Jordan said, "Tyler, I didn't want to be the guy to say this, but I've seen her with different guys. Around town. At that new lounge near Maine. I thought maybe she was meeting friends, but now." My jaw clenched. "Why didn't you say something? Would you have believed me?" I didn't respond. Because the truth was no. I wouldn't have. Because I was stupid. Because I wanted to believe her. Because I loved her so much I ignored the obvious signs. The phone beeped in my hand. Another call coming in. It was her. I didn't answer. I walked into the kitchen, opened the drawer where we kept random junk, batteries, rubber bands, old receipts, and pulled out a small black folder I hadn't touched in months. Inside it, our marriage certificate, copies of insurance policies, and a letter I never sent. A letter I wrote 6 months ago when things started feeling off. When her smile seemed forced and her phone was always glued to her hand. I wrote it in a hotel room, halfway through a work trip. I'd seen photos on her Instagram she never mentioned. New friends I never met. New bars. New outfits. I never sent the letter. I told myself I was paranoid. Insecure. That I needed to trust my wife. What a joke. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Emma appeared, wearing leggings and a sweatshirt now, her hair tied back. Trying to look normal. Like she hadn't just blown up our marriage 30 minutes ago. "Tyler, please," she said, voice soft. "We can go to therapy. Work through this." I stared at her like she'd grown horns. "Therapy?" I repeated. "You think a couple of sessions is gonna wipe away 4 affairs and a destroyed marriage? I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "You didn't mean for it to happen?" I snapped. "You never planned to stop, Emma. Don't pretend like this was some accident. You had options. You had me. And you chose lies. Over and over again." Tears welled up in her eyes now. But they felt late. Like a bad actor missing their cue. "I messed up," she whispered. "No," I said, standing straight. "You didn't mess up. You made a choice." Repeatedly. "And now I'm making mine." She blinked. "What do you mean?" I grabbed my keys off the hook. "I'm leaving. Tonight." "Where will you go?" "Away from you." I didn't look back when I left. Didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even pause to let her throw out one more excuse. I just stepped out into the cold night air and walked to the truck like a man who finally pulled the last knife from his back. I sat behind the wheel for a moment, breathing. My hands were still trembling, but not from fear. From release. From finally letting go of the weight I'd been dragging for months, pretending it wasn't there. But even with the door shut and her out of sight, I couldn't get her voice out of my head. The lies. The gaslighting. The way she made me feel like I was the crazy one when things didn't add up. I started the engine and drove. No destination. Just away. Halfway across town, I pulled into a 24-hour diner. The kind of place where no one asks questions, where the smell of coffee and old vinyl seats comfort you more than any friend could at 2 a.m. I slid into a booth, ordered black coffee, and stared out the window. And then, without thinking, I pulled out my phone. I shouldn't have done it. But I opened Emma's Instagram. Her most recent photo was from just yesterday. A selfie in the mirror wearing that tight green dress she used to only wear for me. The caption read, "Glowing differently these days." The comments made my stomach twist. Speech balloon, that smile says everything. Speech balloon, who's the lucky guy? Speech balloon, slay queen. And the worst? Chase had liked it. Of course he did. I put the phone face down on the table and leaned back. My pulse was rising again, and the rage, buried under layers of shock, started to claw its way back to the surface. I was so busy trying to be calm, trying to be rational, that I hadn't really let myself feel it. But now, sitting in that booth, surrounded by strangers and fake smiles from filtered photos, I felt it. I felt everything. The betrayal, the humiliation, the waste. She didn't just cheat on me. She laughed in my face while doing it. She made me question my own instincts. She made me believe I wasn't enough. I pulled out my wallet, tossed some cash on the table, and walked back to the truck. This time, I had a destination. It wasn't home. It was Chase. I still remembered his car, the black Tesla with vanity plates, gym logo on the bumper. Jordan had told me where he worked. I didn't know what I was going to do exactly, but I knew one thing. I wasn't letting this end with a text and a quiet exit. No. He needed to see me again. And this time, there would be no towels. No excuses. Just truth. I drove across town, pulled into the parking lot of the elite gym downtown. It was almost empty, but there were a few lights on. The late-night trainers doing private sessions. And there it was, his car. Right where I expected. I parked, got out, walked across the pavement with steps that felt heavy and steady. Like every inch of concrete brought me closer to something I'd been holding back. I stepped into the gym. The front desk kid looked up. "Can I help you? Where's Chase?" He froze. I didn't wait for an answer. I walked through the corridor, past the machines, and turned the corner to the private weight room. And there he was, wearing headphones, lifting like the world didn't just shift under his feet 24 hours ago. He didn't see me until I was 5 feet away. He dropped the weights, took off the headphones. "Tyler, hey, listen, man, I didn't mean." I stepped closer. "No," I said, voice calm and clear. "You don't get to talk." He raised his hands again, just like he did in my bedroom. "I'm not here to kill you," I said. "Relax. But I need you to hear this." He nodded slowly. "You didn't just sleep with my wife," I said. "You disrespected a man who gave everything to someone who threw it away. You played with fire in a house you didn't build." He opened his mouth to speak. I cut him off. "You didn't just lose her. You made an enemy." Chase didn't blink. Maybe it was the lighting. Maybe it was the weight of what I just said. But for a moment, he looked like he realized he'd stepped on something more dangerous than he could handle. "I didn't know she was married, man," he said, lowering his arm slowly. "She told me you were separated." I stared at him. "She told you what?" "Yeah," he said. "That she was staying at the house because of the dog. That you'd moved out. I figured you were going through a divorce or something. She said it was complicated." That damn word again. Complicated. She said that. I asked, almost laughing, "That we were separated?" He nodded, then added, "She never wore a ring." "Not once." "Of course she didn't. She took it off months ago, said it was too tight, said she'd get it resized." I believed her. Because I wanted to. Because back then, I still trusted her. I took a breath and looked away, trying to keep the boiling in my chest from exploding. "She's good at it," I muttered. "The lying." Chase sat down on the nearby bench. "Look, I didn't mean to disrespect you. I wouldn't have gone near her if I knew." I believed him, which only made it worse. Because that meant Emma knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't just cheat, she erased me. She rewrote our story for strangers so she could keep living 2 lives without consequence. She did worse than lie, she planned it. I turned to Chase. "How long?" "Couple of weeks," he said, avoiding eye contact. I thought it was just casual. She never talked about feelings or anything. I smirked. "Yeah, that's her game." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Why'd you come here, Tyler?" "Just to scare the hell out of me." I thought about that. Why did I come? Not to fight him. Not to hurt him. To understand. To confirm what I already knew, that Emma wasn't just reckless. She was calculated. She didn't fall into infidelity. She walked into it, eyes wide open, dragging men along with whatever story fit that week. I turned to leave. But then Chase said something that froze me in my tracks. She mentioned something about selling the house. I turned back slowly. "What?" He shrugged. Said she might be moving soon. Something about putting the house on the market. My mouth went dry. We'd never talked about selling. Not once. And yet here she was, making plans behind my back. Probably lining up the next phase of her life while I was still standing in the ashes of what she burned. "Thanks," I muttered, walking out. My thoughts raced as I drove. She wasn't just cheating. She was preparing for a life without me. A future where she kept the house, spun the narrative, made me the villain. And if Chase hadn't said that, I wouldn't have known a damn thing until the for sale sign went up on my lawn. I called my lawyer before I even got home. Told him we needed to meet first thing in the morning. I was done playing the good guy. Done giving her the benefit of the doubt. She wanted war? I'd give her war. When I finally pulled into the driveway, her car was gone. Good. I needed the space. I needed to think. I walked into the house, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat at the kitchen table. Same table we used to sit at and plan our future. The same table where she probably laughed with one of them when I was away. I opened her laptop. She never changed the password. In seconds, I was in. And what I found? Emails to a realtor. Drafts of listings. Notes about downsizing after the separation. And even worse, messages to one of her friends saying she hoped I wouldn't fight her for the house, since he's been absent emotionally for over a year. I closed the laptop slowly. She was already writing me out of the picture. But now, I was back in it. And I wasn't leaving quietly. By the time morning light cut across the living room floor, I'd barely slept. But I wasn't tired. I was focused. A strange calm had settled over me, the kind that only shows up when there's nothing left to lose. She wanted war? I was done bleeding. It was time to sharpen the blade. I met with my lawyer at 9 a.m. sharp. Daniel Reynolds, clean suit, sharper mind. He'd handled my uncle's nasty divorce 5 years back and left his ex-wife crying into her martini. I figured he'd be perfect for this kind of operation. He listened in silence as I laid it all out. The affairs, the lies, the hidden emails, her plans to sell the house behind my back. When I finished, he leaned back, tapped a pen against his notebook, and said, "You've got leverage. You want to play this clean or make it hurt." I didn't hesitate. I want her to feel everything she put me through. He nodded. Then we start today. We filed for divorce that morning. I authorized a full investigation into all financials, assets, joint accounts. Everything she thought she had control over? She was about to find out otherwise. But that wasn't enough. Because for months, maybe longer, Emma had been crafting a version of me, the distant husband, the cold provider, the emotionally unavailable partner. She told that story to Chase, to her friends, maybe even to her family. She was writing fiction. So I decided to publish the truth. That evening, I met with Jordan, the same friend who'd seen Chase at the gym, and laid out everything I'd found. The emails, the conversations, even screenshots from her cloud backup. "I'm not trying to humiliate her," I said, "but people need to know the truth. She's not some poor victim of a failed marriage. She's a manipulator." Jordan nodded. "Say the word, man. I'll back you." He wasn't just a friend. He was connected, mutual friends, neighborhood chats, group events, and worst of all for Emma, he was the one who ran the community newsletter for our part of town. 2 days later, whispers started spreading like wildfire. Not from me. Not directly. But people talk. And Emma? She thrived on appearances. Image was everything to her. Being the glamorous, misunderstood wife was a role she'd mastered. But now, the mask was slipping. And then it happened. I came home from a meeting to find her sitting on the front steps, sunglasses on, bottle of wine at her feet, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "You told people," she said without looking at me. I walked past her. "I told the truth." She followed me inside. "You're trying to destroy me." I turned slowly. "No, I'm just not covering for you anymore." Emma paced the living room, that nervous twitch back in her fingers. "You think you're some hero now? You think painting me as a monster makes you the victim?" "I don't have to paint anything," I replied. "You were the monster. You're just mad I took away the brush." She glared at me. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "I already regret you." Her eyes burned holes into me. But behind the rage, I saw panic. Not fear of me, but fear of losing the story she'd built. The lies she'd wrapped around herself like armor. "You don't get to rewrite the narrative," I said. "Not this time." She tried one last time, stepping closer, placing a hand on my chest. "Tyler, we can fix this. If we just stop now, if we talk to people." I gently removed her hand. "You didn't want to fix it," I said. "You wanted to erase me. So I gave you a reason to remember." She stood there, lips parted like she wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I walked upstairs and left her standing in the ruins she built. The divorce finalized exactly 23 days after I caught her with Chase. 23 days of lawyers, paperwork, meetings, and her desperate attempts to spin the narrative back in her favor. But the more she tried, the more she fell apart. Her mask, flawless for years, cracked wide open in front of everyone. She thought she could control the story. She didn't realize I still had the receipts. I got the house. She tried to fight me on it, claimed emotional ties, tried to look wounded in front of the mediator. But the paper trail of emails to the realtor, her texts to friends about flipping it for cash, and the affair logs I handed over? Yeah, that did the job. The judge called her strategically dishonest. I just called it karma. She got her car, some furniture, and whatever dignity she hadn't already burned to the ground. I didn't even want alimony. I didn't want anything from her. Hell, I didn't even want an apology anymore. Some things are too broken to patch up with words. All I wanted was peace. And damn, did it feel good to finally have it. 3 days after the papers were signed, I came home to find her parked outside. Same heels, same perfume, but this time, none of that worked on me. I walked past her, headed toward the front door. "Tyler," she called out, stepping out of the car. "Please, just one conversation." I stopped but didn't turn around. We had months. Years. You had every chance to talk. I didn't think you'd go through with it. I turned slowly, looked her dead in the eyes. "That's the problem, Emma. You never thought I'd leave. You thought I'd stay no matter what. That I'd be too proud or too scared or too good to finally walk away." She took a step closer. "I didn't mean to ruin everything. But you did. On purpose. With intention. With lies stacked so high you forgot where the truth ended." She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "You weren't unhappy, Emma. You were just greedy. You had love, a home, a partner, but you wanted attention, drama, new skin under your nails. You didn't cheat because I was gone. You cheated because you could." I stepped back and smiled. "You always thought you were 10 steps ahead. But now you're standing outside a house that doesn't belong to you anymore. And the man who used to chase after you? He's not here." She started crying. For real this time. Not crocodile tears. Not stage drama. But I didn't feel anything. No rage. No satisfaction. Just closure. "This was never about revenge," I said. "It was about finally seeing you for who you are. And walking away from that version of my life." She leaned against her car like the weight of it finally broke her. "I miss you." "No," I said quietly. "You miss control." And with that, I went inside. I stood in the middle of my living room, took a deep breath, and smiled to myself. The pain wasn't gone, but it didn't control me anymore. I learned something in those 23 days. Love doesn't die all at once. It bleeds out through ignored red flags, unanswered questions, cold shoulders, and lies told with a smile. I'd bled long enough. So now, I live. For me. And to anyone out there walking through betrayal, standing in the ruins of something they thought was real, here's what I'd say. You're not crazy. You're not broken. And you sure as hell don't deserve to be someone's second choice. Pick yourself up. Walk out the door. And never look back. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you'll ever do is leave the one who thought you never would. I don't remember the cake, or the presents, or the cheap-ass decorations she probably ordered last minute from Amazon. I only remember the sound of her voice, sharp like broken glass, cutting through the fake cheer of that living room. And then the laughter. God, the laughter. "He's the family mistake," Rachel said, glass of rose in hand, her lipstick perfect, her eyes empty. Her sister Tiffany burst out laughing, then pointed right at me. "Birth control is only 99% effective. He's the 1%. They howled like it was the best punchline they'd ever heard. Even her mother, that Botoxed gargoyle, smirked into her wine glass. And me? I stood there in the middle of it all, holding a slice of chocolate cake I didn't even want, with a stupid paper hat on my head and a smile slowly dying on my face. I'd just come home from work, tired as hell, expecting a quiet dinner. But instead, she threw a party for herself, clearly, and humiliated me like I was a clown at my own funeral. I dropped the plate. Didn't say a word. Just walked upstairs, grabbed my black backpack from the closet, shoved in some clothes, a razor, and the only photo of us that ever meant something before it all rotted from the inside out. Rachel didn't notice. Or she didn't care. I passed by the living room on the way out. She didn't even look at me. Her back was to me, dancing with Chad, her co-worker from the gym. The one she said was just funny. Yeah, I bet he was funny. Real hilarious. That night, I walked. No destination. Just streets and silence and the echo of her voice in my skull. 6 years. That's how long it took for the past to find me again. I built a whole new life under a different name, working construction in Oregon, living in a rented cabin, growing a beard long enough to hide the man I used to be. I stopped celebrating birthdays. I stopped thinking about Rachel. Or at least, I tried. Until today. Because today, out of nowhere, they showed up. First, I heard the knock. Then, the crying. Then I opened the door and saw them, Rachel, Tiffany, and their mother, mascara streaking down their fake faces, looking like grief had chewed them up and spat them back out. "Ethan," she whispered. Her voice cracked. No, she didn't get to use my name like that. Not anymore. Rachel stepped forward, holding something in her hand. A photo. Of us. "Please. Just talk to me." I didn't answer. Not yet. Because in that moment, my brain wasn't processing her tears. It was replaying every damn second of that night. Her laughter. That smug face. The way she made me feel like nothing. I should have slammed the door. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I needed to know why she was here. What she wanted. And what the hell she'd done this time that made her come crawling back to the ghost of the man she buried 6 years ago. And deep inside, I had a hunch. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't love. This was desperation. And I was about to find out exactly what kind. I stepped aside, just barely, letting the door stay half open. Not because I wanted her in, but because I wanted to see her squirm. Rachel looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe it was just the weight of 6 years of silence pressing down on her now. Tiffany stood behind her, arms crossed, eyes darting. And their mother? Still pretending to be royalty in a world that forgot her name. I didn't invite them in. I didn't need to. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked, voice low. Rachel tried to smile. Her lips trembled. "We didn't know where else to go." That pissed me off more than anything. Like I was some emergency contact after being discarded like a broken appliance. "So you found me. Congratulations. Now what?" She looked at Tiffany, then back at me. Her eyes filled up fast, and for a second, I thought maybe she was going to throw herself at me, beg for forgiveness, confess that the whole party was a lie, a misunderstanding, something. But no. "There's been an incident," she said. "Chad's gone. Something happened. And You mean Chad, the gym clown you were grinding on at my birthday while calling me a family mistake?" I snapped. She winced. Tiffany looked away. "Ethan, please," Rachel whispered, stepping closer. "It wasn't like that." I laughed. Cold. Bitter. Too loud. It echoed through the cabin. It was exactly like that. I heard it. I saw it. I lived it. Her shoulders dropped. She tried to hand me the photo again. I didn't take it. She placed it on the table instead, our wedding photo. Her smile fake even back then. I was stupid. Immature. I didn't see what I had. "You saw it," I said. "You just didn't want it." Silence. I could feel the tremble in my hands, but I hid them behind the door. Rachel wasn't here for forgiveness. She was here because something had gone terribly wrong in her world, and I was suddenly useful again. "What happened to Chad?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. Rachel looked up, and her lips parted like she was about to tell me something she hadn't told anyone yet. "He was involved in some stuff. Bad stuff. Money laundering. Drugs. I didn't know at first, I swear." "Of course you didn't," I said, dryly. "2 nights ago," she continued, ignoring my sarcasm, "he disappeared. And then someone came to the house. They said things. Threatened me. They think I know where the money is." I laughed again, but this time, it wasn't cold. It was pure disbelief. "So now I'm your backup plan? You ruined my life, vanish for 6 years, and show up because your toy broke and now you're scared." Tiffany, who'd been quiet until now, finally spoke. "She's in danger, Ethan." I looked at her. "And she has no one else." I turned to Rachel, and for a moment, I almost pitied her. But then I remembered the way she smirked as her sister mocked me. The way she danced with Chad like I never existed. The way she called me a mistake to a room full of people, including her damn family. "Not my problem," I said. Rachel's tears turned angry. She stepped forward, chest rising. "You think you're so righteous, don't you? You ran away. You left everything. You didn't even fight for me." "Fight?" I repeated. "For you? After what you did? You never understood me," she said. "You never challenged me. Chad, he made me feel alive." I leaned in, whispering so only she could hear. "He made you feel used. And now that he's gone, you're crawling back to the man who would have taken a bullet for you." She slapped me. I didn't flinch. The room went silent again, the air thick with a storm that had waited years to break. I didn't hit back. I just stepped back inside, grabbed the photo from the table, and tossed it in the fireplace. The flames caught fast. Rachel's mouth opened, but she didn't say a word. "You can stay in town tonight," I said. "But not here. Not with me." And I closed the door. Behind it, I leaned my head against the wood, heart pounding, fist clenched. The past was back, and it came carrying baggage. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind whip through the pines outside. Every creak in the cabin made me think they were still out there, Rachel and her broken little circus of crocodile tears and half-truths. My mind kept looping back to the party, the words, the laughter. The sting of that slap barely registered. What hurt more was realizing she still had the nerve to act like I owed her something. Around 3 a.m., I poured myself a drink. Something strong. The kind that burns all the way down and makes you forget for about 5 seconds who you are. The knock came again just as I finished the glass. I opened the door slowly, and there she was. Alone this time. Drenched in rain, hoodie up, mascara bleeding into her cheeks like ink. No Tiffany. No mommy dearest. She looked like a ghost that had been dragged through hell. Please, she said, voice hoarse. I didn't know where to go. I should have shut the door again. But I didn't. Because I wanted answers. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted her to see what she'd done, to sit in it, to suffocate in the stench of her own betrayal. I let her in. She stepped past me without waiting for permission, shaking the rain off like a stray mutt. She went straight to the couch and sat down like she still had any right to feel comfortable in my space. You have 5 minutes, I said. Start talking. She stared into the dark fireplace, the charred remains of our photo barely visible in the ashes. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she began. Back then, with Chad, it started as a joke. I just wanted to feel something different. You were always safe. Predictable. He was danger. Exciting. I scoffed. Exciting? You mean he knew how to manipulate desperate women? She didn't argue. I thought I was winning, she whispered. Thought I could keep both lives. Laugh at you with my friends, then cry when you weren't around because I knew deep down you were the one who would have done anything for me. And still you spat on me, I said, stepping closer. In front of your family. Your friends. You called me a mistake. I was drunk, she whispered. That's not an excuse. That was the truth you were hiding behind a glass of wine. She looked up at me now, eyes red. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. Don't give me cliches, Rachel. I've lived without you. You haven't earned the right to talk like this means something. She flinched. But I wasn't done. You humiliated me in front of your entire social circle. You didn't cheat once. You built a whole second life around it. Lied. Mocked. Replaced me. Silence. She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them like a child. After you left, things got worse. Chad got darker. The parties turned into deals. And then threats. And when I finally wanted out, he said if I left him, he'd ruin me. Said he had videos. Photos. Stuff I never agreed to. My stomach clenched. You let him record you? Her eyes darted away. I didn't know at first. Then I did. But by then, it was too late. I turned and walked to the window, trying to breathe, trying not to explode. The idea of that bastard not only taking my wife but filming it like some trophy made something primal stir in my chest. He threatened to send them to my job, my family. Blackmailed me for months. I was trapped, Ethan. You weren't trapped, I snapped. You were caught. There's a difference. She nodded slowly, lips trembling. Then he vanished, she said. Last week. No one's seen him. Cops are sniffing around. I think he's dead. And now they're looking at me. I turned around. Why are you here, Rachel? She looked at me, eyes wide, vulnerable, shaking like a leaf. Because if they come for me, if this goes to court, I have no one else. And you were always good. Honest. I thought maybe you'd help me tell the truth. I stared at her. Long and hard. You want me to save you, I said. The same man you buried under your designer heels and dirty secrets. I'm begging you, she whispered. I walked up to her slowly, leaned down close so she could hear every syllable. I buried Ethan Parker the night you laughed at me on my birthday. Whoever you think I am now, he's gone. And you killed him. I stood up, walked toward the stairs. I'll sleep upstairs. You leave by morning. Her voice cracked again. What if someone's watching? I didn't even turn around. Then I hope they brought popcorn. Because the show's just getting started. I didn't sleep upstairs either. Just sat by the window with the bedroom door cracked open, watching the tree line. The wind made the branches sway like hands waving warning signals, and I listened for footsteps, for engines, for anything that said the past hadn't come alone. She stayed downstairs, silent. I didn't hear crying. No pacing. No whispering on the phone. Just silence. The kind that wraps itself around your throat and makes you feel like something's coming. At 6:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text came in. We know she's there. I read it once. Deleted it. got dressed. When I came down, she was curled up on the couch, wearing one of my old hoodies like it still meant something. Her hair was tied back sloppily, makeup wiped away, face raw. She looked up at me like a dog expecting to be hit. You got a text last night, I said. Want to guess from who? She sat up fast. What did it say? That they know you're here. Her hands began to tremble. They'll come. I don't know what they'll do. Chad crossed serious people. You dragged me into this, I said. Dragged yourself here like a grenade you forgot how to disarm. I didn't have a choice. Wrong again. She stood, barefoot, tense. I know you hate me. I deserve it. But I'm telling the truth now. Little late for truth. There was a long pause, and then she said something I didn't expect. They threatened our son. I froze. I turned slowly. What did you just say? She bit her lip. Ethan, please don't get mad. You said our son. She nodded. Slowly. Carefully. You were pregnant when I left? She nodded again. My head spun. You never called. Never tried to tell me. I was scared, she said. Ashamed. And Chad, he didn't want me contacting you. He said the kid would grow up better without the loser who ran away. I couldn't breathe. I sat down hard on the wooden chair by the table. A son. Mine. Where is he? I asked, voice barely holding together. With Tiffany, she said. He's safe, for now. But the people after Chad, they asked about him. That's when I knew I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her fear wasn't just selfish, it was real. You're not staying here, I said. But you're not going anywhere alone, either. We'll get the kid. Then we figure this out. She looked like she wanted to cry again, but stopped herself. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me, I said. This isn't forgiveness. This is war. And I just found out I've got blood in the fight. I made coffee. Black. Strong enough to burn away the shaking in my fingers. She sat across from me, still wrapped in that hoodie, silent. And for the first time in years, I felt something move in me that wasn't just hate or bitterness. It was purpose. I had a son, and nobody was going to touch him. We left the cabin just after sunrise, the fog still hanging low across the fields like a warning. I didn't say a word to her on the drive. She sat in the passenger seat, hands clutched tight in her lap, eyes locked on the road ahead, too scared to even breathe wrong. Good. She should be scared. My son. That phrase hadn't stopped echoing in my skull since she said it. And every time it did, something twisted tighter inside me, rage, guilt, disbelief, all of it tangled in one relentless knot. I had a son, and I didn't even know his name. His name's Eli, she finally said, almost like she could hear my thoughts. I gripped the wheel harder. How old is he? 5.5. I looked at her. Does he know about me? She hesitated. He thinks Chad was his father. I nearly pulled the car over right then and there. You let him be his father? I had to tell him something. And Chad, he was around, and I thought, You thought wrong, I snapped. She didn't say anything after that. Tiffany's place was a rundown duplex on the edge of town. Faded siding, lawn overgrown. I didn't expect much, but even this felt worse than I'd imagined. I parked 2 houses down and scanned the street. Quiet. No cars out of place. No movement in windows. Rachel unbuckled her seatbelt like it was made of explosives. She's probably still asleep. We go together. I cut in. I'm not letting you walk in there alone. Her eyes widened a little, but she nodded. The porch steps creaked as we walked up. Rachel knocked lightly, then rang the bell. No answer. She rang again. Nothing. Something's off, I muttered. Rachel's face drained. She tried the handle. Unlocked. We stepped in. The living room was trashed, couch overturned, lamp shattered, a wine glass spilled and dried into the carpet. Eli, she called out, voice cracking. I moved faster, clearing the hall, checking each room. Bathroom, empty. Kitchen plates smashed on the floor, drawers pulled open. Like someone had been searching for something. And then I saw the note, taped to the fridge. For words, all caps, printed in thick black Sharpie. You owe US now. Rachel let out a sharp sob and crumpled to the floor. Where is he? I demanded. She shook her head violently. I don't know. I swear, Ethan, I don't know. She was supposed to be watching him. She promised. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 before my brain even caught up. But I stopped. No cops. Not yet. These weren't the kind of people who left police-friendly messes. And if they took Eli, calling the cops might make them panic. And panic could get him hurt. I turned back to Rachel, who was shaking and hyperventilating on the floor like the world had caved in. I crouched down, grabbed her shoulders. You need to pull it together. Right now. Look at me. Her eyes met mine, wild and lost. Think. Who would have done this? Names. Faces. Anything. She closed her eyes, lips moving like she was trying to dig into her own mind. There's a guy named Luis. One of Chad's suppliers. He came to the house once. Said if Chad disappeared, someone had to pay the tab. I didn't think they'd take Eli. I stood up, phone already in my hand. Then we're paying him a visit. What are you going to do? I looked at her like she'd just asked if fire was hot. Whatever I have to. She grabbed my arm. You can't just walk into that world, Ethan. You don't know these people. I know what it means to have someone you care about taken from you, I said. And I know what it means to have nothing left to lose. She didn't say anything. I headed back to the truck. Started the engine. Looked at her standing there in the doorway, shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. Either get in or stay behind. But I'm getting my son back. She didn't hesitate this time. Rachel climbed into the truck, slammed the door shut, and fastened her seatbelt with trembling hands. The silence between us was loaded now, not with resentment like before, but with the weight of something far worse, the sickening dread that our son was out there, terrified, in the hands of men who didn't see him as a child, just leverage. Where do we find Luis? I asked, eyes on the road. He used to run a car shop near Fremont. It was a front, obviously. You'll know it when you see it, black steel fence, no sign. Only opens for people who knock right. Is he dangerous? She nodded slowly. He used to carry a revolver tucked in the back of his jeans. The kind of guy who talks softly and then breaks your ribs when you blink wrong. Perfect, I muttered. We hit the highway, and my fingers were gripping the steering wheel so hard they were losing color. Rachel kept looking at me, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I didn't care. My head was somewhere else, flashing with images of Eli. A little boy I'd never met. Did he look like me? Did he even know I existed? Was he crying right now, scared out of his mind in some filthy back room with strangers yelling outside the door? I felt like I could explode. We pulled off the highway and onto a cracked side road that cut between warehouses and chain-link fences. Just like she said, there it was, a black steel fence, half rusted, wrapped around a long, low building with dark-tinted windows. No sign. No open bay doors. Just silence. I parked across the street. I'm going in alone. Rachel's hand shot out. Ethan, wait. No. If they see you, they'll think this is personal. Emotional. It'll make us weak. I'm going in like I don't give a damn about you or the boy. Like I'm just here to settle a debt. That's insane. I looked at her, dead in the eyes. So is taking my son. She swallowed hard and nodded. I stepped out, adjusted my jacket, and walked toward the gate. There was a buzzer tucked behind the fencing, half covered in grime. I pressed it once. Twice. A camera tilted down. I stared into it. The gate buzzed. I walked through. Inside the lot, the building looked even more abandoned than from the street. We'd covered pavement, a broken-down muscle car near the back wall, its tires flat and windows smashed. Then the door opened. A man stepped out, tall, lean, mid-30s, wearing a long leather coat despite the heat. Beard trimmed close, expression unreadable. You're not one of mine, he said calmly. I'm here for the boy. His face didn't change. Lots of boys in the world. Be more specific. Eli. 5 years old. Light brown hair. Green eyes. He was taken from a duplex on Holloway. You're holding him because his mother owes you for the mess Chad left behind. Now his eyes lit up a little. Not kindness. Recognition. I remember Eli, he said. Cute kid. Quiet. I clenched my jaw. Where is he? He stepped closer, arms relaxed but confident. And you are? His father. He tilted his head. Funny. Didn't know he had one. You do now. There was a pause. He studied me like he was trying to decide what kind of man I was underneath the tough face and calm voice. You here to negotiate or threaten? I'm here to trade. His eyebrows lifted. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Chad's ledger. Names, amounts, drops. Everything. That part was a bluff. I had no idea what was actually on it. Just something I pulled from Rachel's drawer back at the cabin that looked important enough to pass as leverage. Luis's eyes narrowed, and I could tell he was intrigued. You're playing a dangerous game. No. I'm ending one. You let him go. I leave the drive. You never hear from us again. He looked at me for a long time. Then, finally, he turned and nodded toward the door behind him. A second man appeared. Taller. Meaner looking. And holding a small hand. Eli. My chest locked. There he was. So small. So quiet. Wearing a superhero shirt 2 sizes too big. Hair messy, face pale but unharmed. He looked at me confused, scared, unsure. I knelt. Hey, buddy. I'm Ethan. I'm your dad. He stared at me for a second, then looked at Luis, then back to me. His lip trembled. You came to get me? He asked. I swallowed hard. I came to take you home. He didn't move right away. Just looked up at the guy holding his hand, like he needed permission. The man hesitated, then let go. Eli took one cautious step toward me, then another. When he got close enough, I opened my arms. He didn't throw himself at me like some movie scene. He stepped in slow, testing, and when his head touched my chest and I wrapped my arms around him, I felt it, that moment. That pulse in my ribs that said this is mine. My son. His little voice was muffled. Are you going to take me away from the scary men? I squeezed him tighter. You'll never see them again. Luis watched all of it with an unreadable face. I stood up, still holding Eli against my chest, and tossed him the flash drive. He caught it midair, gave it a casual glance, and slipped it into his coat. I hope for your sake you didn't lie to me, he said. I didn't answer. Just backed toward the gate, heart pounding, pulse in my ears. Every instinct screamed don't turn your back on him, but I had to get Eli out. Now, Rachel was waiting in the truck, pacing like a trapped animal. When she saw me with him, her hand flew to her mouth. Tears came instantly. She ran toward us, but stopped short when Eli buried his face into my neck. He's okay, I said, brushing past her. She followed in silence. Inside the truck, I buckled him into the back seat. He held my thumb the entire time, like it grounded him. Or maybe me. Rachel climbed in beside me, whispering, did they hurt him? No. But one wrong move, and they would have. She looked back at Eli, who had already dozed off, one small hand gripping the edge of my jacket. Then she turned to me. I owe you everything. No, I said. You owe him everything. I just did what you should have done 5 years ago. She swallowed hard and said nothing. We drove without talking, just the hum of tires and Eli's light breathing in the back. Somewhere halfway back to the cabin, Rachel finally broke the silence. There's something else you should know. My grip tightened on the wheel. Of course there is. Chad, he wasn't just running drugs. He was working with a cop. Someone on the inside. That's how they stayed clean for so long. That's how Luis knew who to pay off and when. But if Chad's really dead, that cop will be next. And if that cop knows I know, he'll come after you. She nodded. No, I said. He'll come after all of us. That shifted something between us. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about survival. When we got back to the cabin, I carried Eli inside and tucked him into the bed upstairs. He didn't even wake up. Just curled into the blanket like he'd never known anything softer. Rachel watched me from the doorway, arms folded. But this time there was no sharpness in her face. Just something close to shame. I don't deserve him, she whispered. No, I said. You don't. She looked down at her feet. I walked past her, back down to the living room. She followed, hesitant. You're going to tell me everything now, I said, lighting the fireplace. Every name, every deal, every threat. She nodded. Then she started talking. And by the end of it, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. This wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. She talked for over an hour. Her voice cracked a dozen times, but I didn't let her stop. I wanted everything. Every lie, every secret, every bastard who had sat at their fancy dinners smiling while planning ruin in the background. She gave names, places, details I never thought she was smart enough to remember, but it was all there. Turns out, Rachel wasn't just Chad's side piece. She'd been used as a courier. Unwitting at first, then paid off in little luxuries. Purses, shoes, fake attention. She carried flash drives and makeup palettes, signed off on documents she never read, even used Eli's name once to throw off a transaction. It made me sick. You let them tie our son to that filth? I said, voice shaking. She looked down. I thought I could protect him. You couldn't even protect yourself. By the time she finished, the sun had fully set. The fire crackled between us, but it didn't warm a damn thing. She looked exhausted, hollowed out. But I didn't care. She'd done this. And now the weight of it was finally crushing her. You should go, I said. Her head snapped up. What? You're not staying here. But, Ethan, I don't have anyone else. I can't go back. You're not going back. But you're not dragging this mess deeper into my house. What about Eli? He stays with me. The silence that followed was brutal. You think I'd leave him? She whispered. I know you should. You already left him once when you chose Chad. You let another man raise him while lying to both of us. Tears filled her eyes again, but I stood up. You're going to check into a motel. You'll stay low. You'll change your name if you have to. You'll talk to no one unless I tell you to. And you'll just take him, she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I'm his father. I didn't ask to be cut out. I didn't get a chance to show up back then. But I'm here now. And I will burn this entire world down before I let anyone else take him from me. She covered her mouth, turned away, and nodded. I handed her a set of keys. There's an old hatchback in the barn. No GPS. Take it. Use cash. I'll contact you when it's safe. She looked at me one last time, like maybe she thought there was still something left between us. Some ember of that naive love we used to have. There wasn't. She left without another word. I stood at the door, watching the headlights disappear into the trees. Then I went upstairs. Eli was awake now, sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes. He looked up at me, unsure. Where's the lady? He asked. She had to go somewhere, I said gently. She'll be okay. He stared at me for a second. Are you going to go too? I sat beside him and pulled him into my side. No, buddy. I'm not going anywhere. His head rested against my arm. And just like that, the storm inside me slowed. For the first time in years, I felt something like peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally knew who I was, what I had to do, and who I'd do it for. Later that night, when he fell asleep again, I stared into the fire and thought about everything I'd learned. Rachel was right about one thing. I was the family mistake. But sometimes, the mistake is the only thing left with enough guts to fix what's broken. And God help anyone who tries to take him from me now.